All right, hey there, West Michigan meteorologist Will Haney here. We're gonna start this stream off as expected. We're seeing our first severe thunderstorm warnings of the evening, and all of our area now under a severe thunderstorm rather a tornado watch. Last night we were under a severe thunderstorm watch, so it's going to be active the next few hours. This is not a good situation for portions of Allegan, Ottawa County, especially up into Muskegon County. This is where we have a severe thunderstorm warning that was just issued just a few minutes ago by the National Weather Service. This line has a classic bow shape to it. It is a very strong wind producer. The National Weather Service, in their warning, going with the mention of 70-mile-per-hour winds within this storm complex. So that's enough to certainly do some damage. Last night, for reference, we saw mostly scattered 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and then some additional that were over 60, just more isolated. This is potentially up to 70-plus miles per hour. And I'll put a track on this here in just a second. I'm just, we're working on, there was a little bit of a data feed issue from the National Weather Service feeding our watch. So I'm just going to check that really quickly to see if that has been resolved, because basically the National Weather Service in Grand Rapids, okay, that's great to see. This is really good. So our current watch is a tornado watch. This is going to go through 2 a.m. Let me get a different view of this for you. So our tornado watch includes basically all of West Michigan. It goes through 2 a.m. So everyone needs to be on guard. This is still primarily a damaging wind threat, but there is a lot of low-level shear within the lower atmosphere. And so that is why we are concerned with the threat of tornadoes embedded within that main line. So this is the warning, though, that is currently in effect. Again, a severe thunderstorm warning, but I would like you, if you're in Holland right now, you only have a couple more minutes. You need to be inside, away from windows. I would treat this, if it were me, like a tornado, because, you know, a low-end tornado can still produce like 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, which is the threshold that we're talking about right now. When I switch this over to velocity, this will be very telling. Those bright greens that you see there along the leading edge and immediately behind the leading edge of those storms, packing a pretty significant punch as far as wind is concerned. So I'm just checking a couple things. I wanted to see if our photographer, let me see, we're going to try something really quickly on here. I want to see if our photographer is out at the lakeshore providing some images for us. Okay, so this is our photographer, Forrest, and he's out in South Haven. So he is, of course, a little south of that main line that is severe warned right now, but we're going to be continuing to monitor his feed from the lakeshore. So that is, again, a live picture from South Haven's South Beach. And, you know, it could get a little dicey there even as well. Within the hour, but no warning right now in South Haven, only the warning for Muskegon, Ottawa, and Allegan counties. So I'm going to switch this back over to my weather radar, and we'll get another kind of idea of the wind potential within this storm. And then we'll put a track on it for you as well. But yeah, there were some really significant wind gusts with this line as it worked its way through portions of Wisconsin, places like Kenosha, Wisconsin. So those brighter greenish blues that you see there, those are wind speeds, again, upwards of possibly 70 miles per hour that could be mixing down to the ground. So this is headed right for Holland, right for I-196 within the next, I would say, 10-ish minutes, if not even sooner than that. So like I said, I would treat that like a tornado warning and be inside, away from windows, preferably lowest level of your home, most interior room. So this is our first batch of warnings of the night. There are additional storms that have been firing off to the southwest. The orientation of this line is a little concerning as well. Whenever we see that kind of southwest to northeast orientation, kind of like I drew a line there, that can be a little bit concerning for those storms able to tap into some low-level shear a little bit more efficiently than a line that's just, say, north-south. This is your classic bow echo signature on radar, though. This is a basically multi-cell thunderstorm complex that's exhibiting some really strong wind potential. And again, Where we expect some of the strongest wind in these sort of scenarios is right along what we call the apex of that bow, right? So right where it kind of maxes out, right in the center right there. That's where you're expecting some of the most intense winds. So that would be Holland, that would be Saugatuck, that would be Fenville. All of you, if I've mentioned your locations, I would be, like I said, taking this very, very seriously. Let me provide you with a track and we'll get an estimate on the timing. Again, this is a severe thunderstorm warning. This warning goes through 9:45, by the way. This storm is moving east at 60 miles per hour. So just like last night, if you were watching, and we of course dealt with that line of storms last night, just like last night, these are moving at highway speeds. Anytime we have storms moving 60 miles per hour, as we were talking about yesterday, it doesn't take as much for them to mix down some really, really strong wind. So given that it's moving so fast, this is going to be a little tricky to track. And this is a very broad area that I'm going to draw on here. But let me see. Try and get an idea for us. So just some of the main locations, Muskegon by around 8:47. So you got, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Now, that's when the storm will hit. That is not to say that, just like last night, you could get a gust front out ahead of this leading edge that could still produce some really strong wind. So, within the next 10 to 15 minutes, some of the worst of these storms, though, Allegan by around 9:05, Grand Rapids closer to about 9:12, 9:15, and then Plainfield closer to 9:15, and then Lowell a little bit just before 9:30. So those are just some locations. And then what I can do now is I'll try and zoom in and we'll get a better estimate for a few other spots on the map as well. So hold on, bear with me just a second. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wear my glasses too because yours truly is getting old, I'm so old. Just kidding. However, I-196, right through Allegan County, some of the storms are going to start to arrive. This little cell out ahead of the main line isn't necessarily what we're super worried about. It's more this, where the more potent wind. So you might see the rain and storms picking up right now if you're in Saugatuck and even in the Holland area. So like Oval Beach up to Holland State Park is seeing some rain right now, some thunder, some lightning. Anyone at the lakeshore needs to be preferably getting indoors to a well-structured building. I know a lot of folks like to venture out to the lake and watch these storms roll in. I get it. You're at least usually generally not around any big trees when you're parked along the beach. However, just stay in your vehicle. Don't be silly. And you need to wait this out. And preferably, like I said, I would like you in a building because this does have some very strong wind potential with it. So good amount of lightning. Some heavy rain is starting to push into Saugatuck, possibly into Fenville already. And some of those locations, Fenville, Saugatuck, Holland, you have the greatest potential in the next, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes as these storms move onshore of seeing 70 mile per hour winds. That is enough to do some considerable damage. Larger trees, tree limbs, that's enough to even rip off like shingles off of your roof. Not the entire roof, but enough to do some damage in that way as well. But again, if you are in South Haven, even South Haven as well, you got a little bit more time, but we're, I think, very likely to see an additional severe thunderstorm warning at the very least extended farther south into Van Buren County. It's just that storm shape has it taking a little bit longer to get here. But sometimes what I was getting at earlier, when storm lines, especially with the ingredients we have in play, when they take on that sort of shape, when they're almost like southwest to northeast oriented, that basically just puts them a little bit more perpendicular to the low level flow, and that can help generate spin in the atmosphere and the lower atmosphere especially. So that's almost more concerning for a tornado threat. Now, that being said, within this warning, you might even notice, although it doesn't say it there, they did go with a tornado possible mention. So that just means that tornadoes are still possible and we should be very much on guard for them, which is, again, not surprising given that this storm complex has a history of producing, I believe, I'm not sure if it's been confirmed yet, but near Kenosha, Wisconsin, there were some pretty convincing radar signatures a little bit earlier this evening, and this was that same storm complex as it worked its way through portions of eastern Wisconsin, southeast Wisconsin. So that's the latest for now. We're going to stay on here, by the way. It's going to be a long several hours. Oh, man, I should maybe call my mother-in-law. Okay, she's just north of that tornado warning down in northwest Indiana. So the one maybe silver lining here is that there were some really, really nasty storms in north central Illinois. I'm pretty sure there was a pretty violent tornado tonight in Streator, Illinois. Another one I believe that same cell produced what I believe is another tornado in Dwight, Illinois. That's right off I-55. And then, like I said, I believe there could have been another one in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So at least a few that have already happened today. Some of the more tornadic weather so far has been concentrated a little bit to our southwest. And most of those supercells are on a trajectory that hopefully keeps them to our south. So some of the worst storms, the most tornadic storms, if you will, are expected hopefully to stay a little bit off to our south and west. I'm telling our photographer to try and angle his shot a little bit more to the northwest. Let's see really quickly. So this was, again, the view. So Forrest, our photographer, is traveling. That is South Haven. That's, if you're familiar with South Haven, you're very familiar with that. That's the walk right down to the beach, Phoenix Street, or that might not be Phoenix anymore. I forget if the name of the street changes when you get down along the Black River Channel. But he is heading to try and get a little bit better of a view. You can very much see that kind of ominous sky that's now pointed inland, so away from where the storm is coming. But he's, like I said, positioning to try and get a little bit better of a shot. So that's the marina in South Haven right there that he's driving by as we speak. All right, let me switch back to our radar. And I am going to quickly, so there's like tornado warnings, not in our area, but down in Hobart, Indiana, if you're familiar. Portage, Indiana, not Portage, Michigan. That's my old stomping grounds in a way. That's where I went to college in Valpo. And so I'm very familiar with that area and have some friends and family down there. So I'm kind of keeping tabs on that. That is an observed tornado warning as well. That is not a good situation for our friends in Northwest Indiana right now. So definitely keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Hello, sir. We're obviously on the stream. Do you need anything right now?
No, I was just coming out here to help you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can see him driving. It's really perfect. This is like awesome to have that live view. So, if he can orient a little bit farther to the northwest, I think he'll get a good view. So really quickly, I'm just going to scan this storm for any possible rotation or anything. That looks a little concerning. There's a little pocket that's kind of surging. That would be headed just for Holland. I mean, we're talking just straight for Holland. So if you're in Holland, I would take this storm incredibly seriously. And, I've been saying this since this warning was issued, but I would treat these like a tornado warning, just in an abundance of caution. They have the potential to do stronger wind damage than yesterday, at least. And this is a more confined pocket right now. It extends from up towards, say, Port Sheldon, the Grand Haven area, down to about, some of the worst of it, down to about Saugatuck. However, still some really strong wind indicated offshore of South Haven. It just has a little bit more time there. I just want to quickly look at this. Yeah, that is a very bad. That's right in Hobart, Indiana. I'm just quickly looking at this storm. Yeah, so that is a tornado on the ground in Hobart, Indiana. If you're familiar, if you have any friends and family in Hobart, Indiana, or down in Northwest Indiana, that's tracking right along US 6 in Indiana, Northwest Indiana. So this is just one of several tornadoes that has already happened today with those storms well off to our southwest. So numerous in Illinois, I believe at least possibly one in Wisconsin. And that one in Wisconsin was this same Boeing complex of storms as it worked its way through Kenosha. So the same line that we're now seeing the severe thunderstorm warnings for did briefly, for sure, had a tornado warning and a very convincing signature of a tornado over on the other side of the lake. And there's still a good amount of shear and things for these storms to work with as they start moving onshore. In fact, once they get off of Lake Michigan, there's arguably more ingredients. So this could very well continue to strengthen, and possibly we could see those, the embedded rotation within that here shortly. All right. Generally speaking, I know a lot of people, I'm sure, I don't even have to read the comments. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, like, when is it going to hit X? When is it going to hit this spot? Generally speaking, these storms are moving east at about 55 to 60 miles per hour. So what I'm going to do now is kind of extrapolate some of these, the storm motion, and we'll try and get you kind of an idea for some just major areas of kind of when these storms can hit. The biggest question right now is how this area kind of develops off to the southwest. As it looks now on radar, we'll have to see if this, let me see. If this southern flank kind of continues to build off to the southwest, then this could be like a threat for our southern two tiers of counties. However, as I see it right now, what I could very well see happening is we get some sort of a bow that extends through kind of our northern half of the viewing area, probably clips Kalamazoo, and then this larger complex that's producing some tornadoes in northwest Indiana, that could miss us or crawl right along the tollway down there along I-80 and stay maybe just south of the Michigan-Indiana line. We'll see if that happens. Again, this is the biggest area of question. We also had a little pocket of some showers and decaying thunderstorms that worked their way through this area a little bit earlier, so that could act as an inhibiting factor. We were talking about that during our newscast earlier on. But let me get an idea of timing for some folks. So if you're in Kalamazoo, assuming that line holds together, I would guesstimate, and I say guesstimate, like this is pretty accurate, but don't necessarily trust it down to the exact minute. I would just use it as a general estimate, probably a window of about 15 minutes on either side. And there you go. We now have a tornado warning, so we got to get on air. Could you go just run and tell them? I'm sure they're listening.
Hey, you might want to look at Forrest's camera too.
Okay.
He's on North Beach now.
All right. Let's look at this camera. So this is, wow. Okay, so that's imagery from this storm from South Haven. So we're looking at that southern flank of the storm. Classic shelf indicated there. I'm going to get the latest on this tornado warning, though, in just a second, and I'm going to kill a couple things here. Hold on one second, everybody. We're kind of coordinating our TV coverage and our streaming coverage. Okay, Derek. Yeah, pretty much. Let me pull. Shoot. What did I just roll over? Oh, I locked my wheel. That's not helpful. Okay. So this tornado warning for us is going to be for up in Holland, Zeeland, Hudsonville, Allendale, Port Sheldon, Robinson Township, Coopersville. This is kind of most of Ottawa County is now in this tornado warning. So it's on that northern side of that Boeing complex. Derek, I'm going to move and reposition in just a second so I can be on camera with this cart. But of course, cords are in my way. I think I'm good, TJ. Derek, can you see me in the shot? Are you able to see it right now? Okay. And also, okay, you flip prompter. Thanks. That's perfect. Thank you. All right. Derek, let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and take it. Yeah, we're doing the same thing anyways. Thank you. All right, good evening, West Michigan. I'm meteorologist Will Haney. Your time, 8:45. We are cutting in because we now have a tornado warning issued for Ottawa County. This continues for the next several minutes. This goes through 9:30 p.m. This is for most of Ottawa County. Places like Holland, Zeeland, Port Sheldon, in the Hudsonville area in direct path of a storm capable of producing a tornado. That's the same Boeing segment of storms, by the way, that first prompted our first severe thunderstorm warning tonight, which goes for another 30 minutes or so. We're going to continue to stay with this, but we have a now tornado warning in effect for a large portion of Ottawa County. And we want you to take this seriously, getting inside and away from windows as best you can in most interior room, lowest floor of your home. And as we continue to track this, I'm going to put a track on it for you. We're going to give you kind of a down to the minute update. I'm currently gathering some of the latest information from the National Weather Service. This does not have a confirmed tornado right now. This is for radar indicated potential of a tornado. But this entire segment of storms that you're seeing there approaching the lakeshore is capable of 70 plus mile per hour wind speed. So that's even more than what we saw yesterday on the upper end of some of the wind gust reports that were coming into our newsroom. So if we can, to our directors, Forrest, our photographer, is on live view, and he has a feed actually pointed and is showing the shelf cloud from the South Haven area. Whenever you guys get the chance, if you can pull up those in boxes, that would be great. But again, no rush on that. Right now, we're going to stay focused on this tornado warning. Now that I have the ability, I can zoom in and just show you kind of an update on where we're seeing some of the worst conditions. Now, regardless of whether or not this produces a tornado or not, regardless of that, we still have the potential for tornado strength winds on the low end, 70 plus miles per hour, right in Port Sheldon right now, down to Holland. This is tracking to the east at about 60 miles per hour. So these are cooking at highway speeds, just like the storms last night. Whenever we have storms that are moving east at 60 miles per hour, it does not take a lot for us to see some really damaging winds. So if you're in the Holland area right now, if you're in Zeeland, I want you taking tornado precautions, getting inside in a well-structured building to the lowest floor possible in the most interior room, putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Some of those strongest winds are going to be crossing US 31 from Holland up towards Grand Haven. Anyone traveling needs to get to a building and get inside. Get out of your vehicle, get to a building. If you have anyone that's maybe driving home late tonight along US 31, or if you're maybe a commuter coming into Grand Rapids and you're on I-196, I would advise, if you're enough ahead of this, maybe trying to get to your destination. However, this is going to catch up with you very quickly. Again, traveling east at about 60 miles per hour. What you're seeing there side by side is a live picture from South Haven. That is from North Beach, showing that shelf cloud. I know these can be really crazy and cool to take photos of. However, there is a lot of lightning as well. So I would advise those folks out there to be in vehicles if possible. But again, a tornado warning that includes a good portion of Ottawa County, this continuing through 9:30. And then additionally, our severe thunderstorm warning for all of Allegan County, all of Ottawa County, and Muskegon County actually goes through 9:45. So for another about hour, that warning is going to go. This Holland area especially, right on the apex of that bow, right where you're seeing kind of that curvature there, that is our most likely area to see 70 plus mile per hour winds. I can actually flip this over to our velocity. And these brighter greens that you're seeing there, that is that surge of really strong wind that's advancing right at the lakeshore as we speak. The wind is going to really start to pick up for our friends that are out at the lakeshore. And so Holland area, we're talking to you. If you're in Saugatuck, if you're in Fenville, Saugatuck, that wind is just a minute or two away. If you're in Fenville, maybe a few minutes away. But even still, I think the wind could already likely be picking up quite a bit out ahead of this main line. What prompted this tornado warning, let's see if we can kind of give you a visual on that. And let me see really quickly. Okay. I'm trying to get a visual if we have any confirmation here of embedded rotation within this. And there's no new reports from the National Weather Service as far as any confirmed tornado with this, and no reports just yet of damage, but that's likely going to be within the next few minutes that we would start to see those reports. Getting some weird things going on with our radar signatures here really quickly. I'm trying to kind of troubleshoot that. but we will continue to stay on this. I don't see necessarily any classic hook signature within this storm. I see what prompted the warning now. There was some tightening up of rotation just south of Port Sheldon, but that was mainly offshore, and now that has somewhat weakened, so that's a great sign to see. When I am looking at this, that little area right there on radar, that bright green pocket that was just off of the lakeshore, if I get my little pointer tool here, right there, that was where the area of rotation tightened up. That's what prompted the tornado warning, but that has since weakened quite a bit, so that's a good sign. However, that's not to say this storm, we can take it lightly and say, oh, okay, it's not going to produce a tornado. No, these things can very easily cycle, and there's still 70+ mile per hour wind speeds approaching places like Holland, Port Sheldon, Holland, down to Saugatuck and Fenville as well. This, again, advancing east at about 60 miles per hour. So I'll put a track on this and try and give you an estimate. Sometimes the struggle is with these lines because they cover such a large area, unlike a tornado, which is generally fairly isolated. The tracks I can put on this isn't going to hit every single town and every single location. However, it'll give you an idea, hopefully, of some of the larger metropolitan areas at the very least. So take this as a general estimate, but you can see some of the towns there. And again, a live picture from South Haven as we speak, showing that very ominous looking sky. But Zeeland at about 8:56, Allegan at about 9:11. Some of those really strong winds are approaching your area as well. And then you can see the timing of some other locations there. Ada at about 9:30, Hastings eventually closer to about 9:40, 9:45. These storms arriving for you if they hold together. We do very much expect them to hold together. So again, let me just give you an idea of what's happening across our entire area. We now have a new severe thunderstorm warning, it looks like, that was just rolled out for Van Buren County. We'll get the latest information on that, just zooming in there. Not surprising, Van Buren County kind of on the southern flank of this bow, but still some really strong wind potential that's going to be moving into Covert, South Haven area very shortly. And that was, again, that live picture we were showing you from the lakeshore. But let me get some of the latest info on this warning in particular. I just need to pull this down a little bit. So Van Buren County, your warning is going to go through 9:45 as well, which matches the timing of that warning for all of Allegan County, all of Ottawa and Muskegon counties too. So that tornado area we are keeping a close eye on, and it looks like it could be trying to develop a little bit of a kind of notch signature. However, I'm not really seeing too much in terms of rotation on radar. So that is, again, a good sign. Nothing tightening up super closely together. So again, we have warnings for Muskegon, Ottawa, Allegan, Van Buren counties. Those are going to go through 9:45. We additionally have that tornado warning that goes through 9:30 for radar indicated rotation. That includes places like Holland, Zeeland, up along I-196 towards Hudsonville. Allendale, you're in that warning, and Robinson Township as well. You are in that warning. There could be a little bit of some interaction going on near Robinson, so we want to keep an eye on that for sure, kind of on the northern edge of that little line that you see there. So if I'm going to use my pointer tool here, what I'm talking about is right about here. Sometimes just little tiny, almost that little bow shape within the larger line can sometimes be the wind kind of surging out, and then you can get little areas of rotation from that. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Chief Meteorologist Keith Thompson just arrived, and so he will be just joining me shortly and monitoring things, giving us an extra set of eyes on radar and everything there in our chat from the National Weather Service. So it sounds like some trees already down, being reported down in Grand Haven, which is not surprising given the potential for wind. It also looks like there is a rain-wrapped wall cloud in Ottawa County, and that was southwest of 128th and Lake Michigan Drive. And that is a very potent wall cloud that I'm looking at. So a wall cloud, often the precursor to a tornado. Not always. It's not that every wall cloud produces a tornado, but it is that lowering of a rotating part of the storm that usually is what produces the tornado. So I want you to take this very seriously. If you're in some of those locations I've been shouting out, then you need to be, like I said, inside and in your tornado safe place, because it really at any moment this line could spin up a tornado or possibly even 2. We'll watch for that. Grand Haven down towards Holland, all the way down towards Saugatuck and Fenville. Some of the worst rain is impacting you as we speak. I'm also live, by the way, on Facebook and YouTube. So, I always recommend having multiple ways of receiving warnings. I always mention that because in the event that you lose power, but you still have maybe some cell service, then you can hop on our live stream, maybe even have the live stream going with your TV stream, because if one goes out, then you have the other. That's what we mean when we say having multiple ways of receiving alerts. So I'm kind of monitoring our stream as well and any reports there, and we will bring you the very latest. But right now, we need to just stay hyper-focused on this segment of storms from Grand Haven down towards Holland, and then extending all the way down towards South Haven as well. Let me hop on here, and I'm going to pull our radar down a little bit, because now the storms are very much arriving in South Haven with that potential for 70-plus mile-per-hour winds. It does look like the southern edge of the storm isn't quite as impressive as far as the 70-plus mile-per-hour wind potential. They're going with a mention of 60 miles per hour with this Van Buren County warning. However, that's just what we saw yesterday with the numerous severe thunderstorm warnings we had in play, and we know what damage that did. Numerous trees and outages, of course, in the very high end as far as what we see here in West Michigan. All right, just keeping an eye on that possible area of rotation. There's definitely maybe something trying to tighten up near Robinson Township. That would be a little to the west of Allendale as well. If you're in Coopersville, you're on the northern edge of that tornado warning. However, I still want you to be very much paying attention to this storm. So numerous severe thunderstorm warnings at this time. And Keith, if you can monitor chat, I do have it pulled up on Max too. Anything that you see there, I think we're going to start to see some pretty significant reports.
I will definitely cut in as soon as I hear something.
Yeah. So what I was also trying to do is I'm going to try and pull up on our live feed. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But if you guys have that feed from Forest out at the lakeshore, if we could show boxes, I know the one we were showing kind of cuts off the radar a little bit, so don't show it for too long. But if we could just take that, that is very much that shelf cloud arriving in South Haven. Maybe some very heavy rain that's going to be moving in to Forest's location here very shortly, if it's not already. Does look like it's coming down there in that shot. So again, no tornado threat, at least right now in South Haven. However, there is very much the threat of a possible tornado up in Ottawa County. So we're talking this area that is on your screen right now. So up into Allendale area, Coopersville, want you to be very much on guard. And again, there were already some reports of tree damage that came from Grand Haven area just a little bit ago. So I'm switching this over to velocity, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, what I'm a little bit concerned with. These little areas of brighter green, those little pockets right there, that's where you can kind of see these just little areas of spin trying to somewhat form. So Zealand area, for example, you're under that tornado warning, and for very good reason. These little notches that you see there, that's the storm maybe trying to produce some localized spin. And so oftentimes with these sort of tornadoes, if we see them, they're generally speaking going to be your shorter lived ones by comparison to some that are isolated supercells. Those are going to track for a lot longer and produce your higher end tornadoes. But there's just so much spin in the lower atmosphere that these leading edges of storms can really try to spin and tighten up.
Will, so we have thunderstorm warning now for Kent and Berry County.
Okay.
Kent and Berry County until 10 o'clock tonight. This is a 70 mile per hour gust. I believe that would be considerable damage.
Yes.
Severe thunderstorm warning for considerable damage. It's radar indicated, but there could be a tornado with this as well, tornado possible.
Yeah.
So again, that is Kent and Berry County until 10 o'clock.
Okay, and we are seeing those coming into our system now. Keith, you can see all of Kent County now included in that. And there's that new information on our new severe thunderstorm warning in the bottom left portion of your screen. And again, that goes through 10 p.m. for radar indicated wind speeds of 70 miles per hour. All this is they're extending that warning from this large segment of mowing storms off to the east. So it already has this history of producing some strong wind gusts. And again, we're watching those areas of possible embedded rotation. Now down in, I do want to mention this, down in Northwest Indiana, there's also been some confirmed tornadoes. There's been several already confirmed off in Illinois as well today. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this complex. This could just creep right along the Michigan-Indiana line. I kind of see it as a complex farther north, perhaps just immediately north of 94. And then we could see another complex off to the southwest too that could impact some of our southern counties. So we want to keep an eye on that as well, because it's that southern flank that has a little bit more of a tornado history and a little bit better ingredients as well for tornadoes off to the southwest. That's not to say we can't be on guard up here. However, that is just another thing we're going to have to watch very, very closely. So again, one tornado warning for us. It is in Ottawa County. It goes through 9:30 for radar indicated rotation. There's no update from the National Weather Service to suggest there's a tornado on the ground. However, what we were seeing was some areas of possible rotation trying to kind of spin up. Some of those are just west of Hudsonville and south of Allendale. I can maybe shout out a few locations as well and maybe some streets. So that would primarily be, again, up towards Hudsonville, immediately entering into the Hudsonville area of some rotation that definitely has my attention. It just worked its way over Zeeland. And again, no true tornado on the ground to our knowledge. However, this area right here that's eventually going to push towards Grand Rapids, by the way, we'll have to see if they extend that tornado warning. Definitely could be trying to get its act together a little bit. So we're going to keep on this. As long as we have a tornado warning, we're going to stay on air. And of course, we're streaming on live on YouTube and our Facebook pages as well. So again, you can join us there too. Is there any update that you're seeing, Keith?
No update right now.
Okay.
We'll just 30 mile per hour, 29 mile per hour, or 29 knot gusts in South Haven.
Okay.
And 39 knot gusts in Holland. That's all I've seen so far. Everything else is pretty much as you are explained it there, especially with that add of Kent County and Berry County to the one.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, up towards Hudsonville area right now, and then up into Allendale. Between Hudsonville and Allendale is almost the most convincing area of some possible rotation that I'm seeing at this time. That would be towards Blendon. I'm not as familiar with that, but yeah, we're talking to you, Allendale. And then eventually this is going to push into Kent County. So we'll have to see if they extend the tornado warning. Technically, this tornado warning goes through 9:30. It will likely, this storm is likely to get out of Ottawa County before then. So we'll see if they extend it a little bit farther to the east. But right now we have several severe thunderstorm warnings. And with these tonight, I want you to just take them seriously. There's better ingredients arguably tonight versus last night from a high wind standpoint and a possible tornado standpoint. So the southern edge of the storm, I don't want to totally ignore that. So it just worked its way through South Haven, likely entering into Bangor right now, and then extending up into Allegan County too. There's some pretty strong wind potential there. That would be pushing towards Bloomingdale here very shortly, and eventually out towards, say, Pine Grove, or eventually Gobles area, and eventually Paw Paw as well. But again, Van Buren County is kind of on the southern edge of this Boeing complex of storms. And it's right usually, not always, but usually with these sort of storm complexes, you get the most intense wind speeds kind of right at the apex of that bow. So right where the curvature is maximized, that's generally speaking where you're going to get some of the strongest wind gusts. So we would be talking to Ottawa County, portions of northern Allegan County, especially for that greatest threat of 70+ mile per hour wind gusts.
Yeah, you know, Will had just mentioned a little bit ago that even though it is only a severe thunderstorm warning, if that's what you want to say,
Yeah.
you know, he noted that there were some signs where there could be a couple of free rotating wind areas there. And so this is why we have those spin-ups that come up so fast.
Yeah.
And that's why in an environment like this, you do need to take these severe thunderstorm warnings very seriously, and already considerable damage possible with 70 mile per hour gusts potential from these warnings.
Yeah, there's even like a lower end tornado, very low end tornadoes can still produce about 70, 75 mile per hour wind gusts. So that's the same sort of upper limit of wind we're talking right now. And, you know, sometimes we kind of, I think a lot of folks don't take severe thunderstorm warnings quite as seriously as tornado warnings, but, you know, oftentimes, especially here in West Michigan, as we saw last night, your more widespread damage often comes from severe thunderstorms compared to tornadoes. Tornadoes can produce more damage or more significant damage, but it's usually pretty localized by comparison to a big swath of strong wind like we're seeing right now. So advancing through central Ottawa County, central Allegan County, Allegan, I believe when we put that track on it, it was closer to about 9:15 when we're going to start to see some of the worst wind and storms. And I'll put another track on that here shortly.
Yeah, Kent County, you need to be advised as well from the National Weather Service. They're noting as well those couplets that you were looking at, and they're saying there could be a tornado warning coming out for Kent County here soon.
Yeah, if we continue to see those little areas of embedded rotation, I would be surprised if we did not see that extended farther east. Here's just another update on the timing of things. And I was a little bit actually late. Allegan at about 9:10, Kentwood at about 9:15, Caledonia 9:23, and then we have a few other locations. Hastings, while you're not technically under that warning just yet, you're kind of right on the border of a warning. Hastings area, and that would include or excuse me, not Hastings. I was thinking Richland. I don't know why. Hastings, you are very much in the warning. I saw Rutland, and my brain went to Richland. They like combine those two locations. My apologies there. But Portland at about 9:54, and then Charlotte at about 10 p.m. So eventually, this is all just moving due east, just like those storms last night. They're tracking from west to east, and they're going to be moving at highway speeds of about 60 miles per hour. So we want you inside, away from windows, and if you're in that tornado warning area especially, we want you taking these storms very seriously and be in your tornado safe place.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time, by the way, before tornado warning is issued for Kent County. So if you're
Okay.
in Kent County, especially western Kent County, let's say west of US 131, then you already need to be going to your safe space.
Yep, and when it comes to bow segments, especially with this sort of setup we have tonight, usually your tornadoes happen, I was talking about kind of that apex of the bow. Usually it's kind of on the northern side of that bowing segment. So we're talking Allendale down towards Hudsonville. This pocket right here definitely has my attention, especially Keith, if you see those little kind of almost like nubs or notches trying to form kind of on the leading edge. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
I think we do have a live picture right here. This is one of our moving cameras here with the wind blowing the rain around quite a bit here.
That's in South Haven.
South Haven, okay.
That's Forrest, our
We did notice,
photographer.
videographer Forrest who's there, and did notice that there was, or note anyway, a storm spotter with a 29 knot gust
Okay.
from there. But obviously the wind is blowing the rain around quite a bit. This again is a live view from South Haven.
Yeah, and these storms, unlike last night, will produce some really heavy rain. There's our live camera, Keith, down the Black River channel. You can see
Yes. Well, yeah.
very well, or lack thereof, that you can see because of that heavy rain. But that is, again, showing the really heavy rain that these storms are going to produce, unlike last night, which it was kind of lackluster in the rainfall department.
Yeah, tornado warning now issued by the National Weather Service for southern Kent County.
Yeah, I just saw
Southern
that.
Kent County, severe thunderstorm capable of producing both tornadoes and extensive straight line wind damage. This is moving along the line extending from near Jenison to near Jamestown Township. That's moving to the east at 50. This is radar indicated. So again, tornado warning for southern Kent County. This goes until 9:45.
Yep.
By the way, with that, I did see where several reports are coming out, or some reports are coming out of a possible funnel cloud at 48th and Port Sheldon in Hudsonville.
Yep.
Not verified, just something that the public has seen.
Yeah, and I see exactly where that would be. There's a couple areas which we'll get to here in just a second, but right now, just some locations to shout out of immediate concerns for me. If you're in Allendale right now, take this storm seriously. If you're in Walker, you need to be definitely getting to your tornado safe place. Wyoming, Grand Rapids, even downtown, you know, tornadoes do hit major metropolitan areas. That's kind of something that sometimes goes around like, oh, they don't hit cities. They very much do and can hit cities. We've seen even some tornadoes over the years in and around the Grand Rapids metro. And then if you're in East Grand Rapids, if you're in pretty much anywhere in the Grand Rapids metro, I would be getting ready and positioning to move to your tornado safe place.
Yeah,
You-
definitely a myth that tornadoes do not hit large cities. It was just a few years ago, one went right through Nashville.
Yeah.
As an example. And
Yep.
That put to bed that myth. So yes, they can happen anywhere.
Yes. So the two areas that I'm seeing, one is near Hudsonville. That's right near I-196, just south of Hudsonville. And if I put a freeze frame on this, I'll try and kind of draw on here what I'm seeing, Keith. But little area right here of some possible rotation. And then just a little farther north. It's not showing up quite as well in our radar product, but it's definitely a little bit of surging of the winds, if you will, approaching between Walker and Granville. So I'm trying to kind of get my bearings. I'm looking at two different radar products. There we go. It's actually less messy when I zoom out a little bit. Right here, it's definitely an area of concern.
So it's going to be south of Lake Michigan there.
Mhm.
I think 45.
Yep.
So south of Allendale.
Yeah, so that's an area. and then another one right here. You know, it's sometimes these segments can produce sometimes multiple low end tornadoes even at the same time. That's not unheard of. So we want you just taking this very seriously. Again, this storm trying to get its spin together a little bit. Now, fortunately, I don't see any indications of tightening of rotation along the southern edge of this. However, some of the more intense wind speed potential is working its way into the Allegan area right now as we speak, into the Hopkins area, where again, we do have severe thunderstorm warnings that include Allegan and Van Buren counties. If you're in Berry County, you're also under a severe thunderstorm warning. Many of these going for another about 45 or 30 to 45 minutes. And then the warning that was issued in Berry County, that one goes through 10 p.m.
Yes, and so does that tornado warning, by the way. That goes until 9:45. And they also mentioned there the GR Ford Airport as a place there where we should be taking cover.
Okay, yeah, that is great information. Thanks, Keith. And we're going to continue. You, Keith, with the tornado warning. I think you said the track on that was east at 50, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
So just to give an idea, and this isn't necessarily exactly where that tightening of rotation is, but these are moving so fast we have to zoom out quite a bit. And so this is going to mention some locations that aren't technically in the warning just yet. Like Ionia, you're not technically in that warning. However, Grand Rapids downtown by around 9:18, Cascade about 9:25, and eventually Ada closer to about 9:26. That's where we're expecting this line to begin really pushing in, and within that leading edge, we could see some brief and likely short-lived, but tornadoes nonetheless. So we want you to take this very seriously and get inside and away from windows, lowest floor of your home, and the most interior room. There's again, that's a picture from Grand Rapids, so that's a great view. We can actually take that full if we can eventually, just for a few seconds, so we can get a better frame. However, that is definitely worth showing because that's going to be the line that's looking towards the west. Keith, we angled the camera, so
looking out I-196, I believe, looking right to the west there out of downtown.
for sure.
Right into that line of thunderstorms there. And again, remember, with these moving at that kind of speed, 50 miles an hour, you may not have as much time as you think to prepare. And so you really need to be paying attention again, especially if you're in southern Kent County, if you're south. going until 9:45, so that still has 30 minutes to go. From Ottawa County Skywarn there, 47-mile-per-hour wind gust was measured there in Holland. So that's in Holland, but again, that storm has now moved off to the east. That is part of what we're tracking right now. The circle that you see where Will has there, we see that white and green, that's where there certainly is some concern right there. This is going to be, again, just south of Granville. This is approaching US 131. This is all south of downtown Grand Rapids. And just as a reminder, when the National Weather Service with the tornado warning was issuing some communities that might be affected, the GR Ford Airport was listed there as well. So if you happen to know somebody who might be at the airport, or if you have somebody who's going to be there soon, you might want to let them know that they could be in the path of a storm that is producing some very violent wind.
Yeah, and apologies for anyone that was on our live stream on YouTube. We had a little technical glitch there. We should be back now and you should be able to hear us now. But of course, we are staying on air until we see these tornado warnings expire. But let me switch this back to radar. We were figuring that out. And again, you can see all the warnings that were just mentioned. The southern edge of this storm could stay north of Kalamazoo, but we're still going to monitor these storms. They kind of look, Keith, to me like they have a little bit of a northeasterly trajectory, just slightly.
Yeah, I'm watching these right now from the feed that's coming from the National Weather Service out of northwestern Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
It just came out from there a few minutes ago. That is a tornado warning that was
Yep.
issued there for North Central Stark and Southwestern Report. And the reason we're talking about these is because they're getting closer. In fact, you can see that the northernmost edge of that does touch Berrien County there.
Yep.
And so these are very dangerous storms here, particularly noted by the National Weather Service there in northwestern Indiana. They are moving, by the way, northeast at 35. These are moving northeast at 35.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, we're going to have to continue to watch those off to the south as well, just due to the fact that we, again, could see those kind of lift into some of our southernmost counties. But these are prolific rainmakers too, way more than yesterday. So there's going to be a lot of rain behind this. It looks like they have trimmed the warning slightly, though, on the back edge of Allegan and Ottawa counties. So just worth mentioning there. But our tornado warning remains our primary focus for a portion of Ottawa and now Kent counties included in that. And there's still a little area of rotation approaching Wyoming. It's not jumping off the page as far as intensity. So I don't necessarily see anything that would be conducive for a tornado currently. Like, I'm convinced there's one on the ground right now. However, near Granville, the Wyoming area, certainly an area of rotation that is worth monitoring.
Yeah, so if you're in this area that we're talking about, you certainly need to be taking cover. And by the way, as Will mentioned, the reason that we're talking about those ones that are in northwest Indiana right now is because they are moving a little bit to the northeast. And so we're going to keep an eye on those for folks in southern Berrien County, certainly in Cass and St. Joe County as well, as those continue to move to the northeast. But as what Will is highlighting right there now on the radar, that area of green that you see there is where there's a certain area of concern. So what we're talking about there is going to be, it looks like along I-196 and then headed toward US 131. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And lifting up towards Wyoming and then eventually crossing 131. I would say it's on a trajectory to eventually pass potentially on the south side of the Grand Rapids Metro up into East Grand Rapids. So we're talking about this area, but anyone in Kent County right now, I know we're talking about the specific area of some possible rotation, but along the leading edge of this, area wide is still a potential for 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. So we want you taking this seriously, even if we're, I know hyper focused on this area of some possible rotation. Everyone along the leading edge of this, if you're in the severe thunderstorm warning or the tornado warning tonight, you need to be just inside, away from windows. And if you're in the tornado warning, of course, taking those tornado precautions.
From the emergency manager in Allegan County starting to see trees and wires down. That's in the city of Allegan and south. So now some trees and wires are being reported to emergency management. That is in the city of Allegan and points south of Allegan. Again, just a reminder that if you are in this warning zone, whether it be severe thunderstorm warning, certainly the tornado warning zone, then you need to be taking cover because these are some very dangerous ones.
Yeah, and now I'm just kind of pulling the radar down across Allegan County and into Van Buren County. Some of these storms right now, for example, just in the Bloomingdale area, it just blew through Allegan. So that makes sense that we're now getting those reports from the 911 operators there from some trees and power lines being noted down. So this is going to be approaching the area of Otsego, for example, very shortly, and eventually Plainwell as well. So locations all too familiar with severe storms this season, as we know. So these are, again, moving very quickly. These are moving faster than I would say average, right? So 50 to 60 mile per hour is just the storm motion. Anytime we have those storms moving that fast, it doesn't take as much for them to produce some really strong wind speeds. And so right along US 131, south of Door, that would be like the Martin area. We're talking Gun Lake Casino right now, for example, starting to see the really intense wind and lightning starting to pick up pretty much as we speak.
Yeah, so if you're in Otsego, if you're in Martin, if you're in Plainwood, you probably, certainly if you're in Plainwood, you should be thinking about taking cover. But if you're at points west, as well as noted there, you do need to be taking cover in a safe spot. As well as going back to our tornado warning that's active there. This again, you can see the area that's covered here. And Kentwood right now looks to be certainly a spot where we're definitely taking some concern here. This would be just to the east of US 131 and M6, just to the east of there. So that would be headed toward Kalamazoo Avenue there, headed toward Kalamazoo Avenue and M37 there. As it makes its way to the east, this would be to the southwest of the airport, southwest of the GRO.
And it is a great sign that we haven't had any confirmed reports of a tornado thus far. It's not to say that this can't still produce a tornado, it's just a good sign. And the fact that we haven't had any confirmed reports yet is just some good news so far. And we'll certainly hope it stays that way. But on the south side of Grand Rapids through Kentwood and then eventually towards Cascade and Lowell, we want you guys taking this very, very seriously. Just to mention a few other locations. So the Ada area, we mentioned you a little bit earlier, putting a track on this. And then again, that is Eastmont, right? That area as well need you in your tornado safe place and taking these storms seriously.
Yeah, right here around M21 there, M21 and I-96 there. So as Will just noted there, so for example, around Ada and Lowell, that's headed right at you right now. So you certainly need to be getting in a safe space right now as well as it's continuing ways off the east. Remember, these are moving anywhere between 40, 50, maybe 55 miles per hour. So you're not going to have a lot of time once those storms are out.
Yep. In Berry County, the storms are still on approach, but Berry County is under that severe thunderstorm warning. That goes through 10 p.m. So Berry County shortly, some of the most strong winds are going to start to pick up with the potential for up to 70 mile per hour winds. So if you're in Hastings, all the way down to Johnstown, you need to be taking these very, very seriously.
Yeah, that would be right down M37 there. So, and if you're to the west of Hastings there, if you're near Middleville, you're probably starting to feel those winds right now around Middleville. Southern Kent County, around Caledonia, for example. And then as we know there, as Will is looking at Allegan there, those strong winds blowing through from the emergency manager, there are already some trees down, some power lines down, just south of Allegan and Allegan itself.
Yeah, some of the latest radar scans when it comes to wind speed across portions of Van Buren County are closer to about 45 to 50 miles per hour on the high end. So it has possibly come down a little bit as far as representation on radar based on wind speed. So these are wind speeds, for example, indicated in Allegan County approaching Otsego, possibly some 50 mile per hour winds. But even a 50 mile an hour wind is still worth taking seriously, because that's sort of the threshold we saw yesterday, about 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, still enough to bring some trees and tree limbs down and cause outages at that speed. So we're still keeping an eye just to see on this northern edge and right on the bow of this bowing segment of storms if we can see any sort of rotation. It is approaching the airport. That's where our the radar is located, operated by the National Weather Service, is also where their office is located. So as it gets a little closer to the radar, we get really good scans. But that's what that little bullseye right there is actually the radar as it approaches.
Yeah, and also still keeping an eye as well on those winds that move to the east. Also keeping an eye on those storms that are coming into northern Indiana too. And we're going to, just to let you know, we're going to continue to watch those for our southern flank, if you will, to let you know if anything happens to be popping there in Berry County or specifically in southern Cass and southern St. Joe County.
Yep.
If that were to happen, it's going to be coming soon.
Yeah, and these, it's enough right now. The northern edge of that complex off to the southwest is going to, I think, hug maybe US 12, Keith, and south. So,
and there have been some photos, by the way, I'm looking at right now of what looks to be funnel clouds, what looks to be a tornado.
Are you talking about this complex off to the southwest?
Yes, I'm sorry, up to the south.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Not in the GRO.
Although there were, as you mentioned, some reports of spotters spotting funnels with the northern edge as well, which is what we're referencing now in Grand Rapids. So I'm not.
This is a thunderstorm warning, by the way. This out from the National Weather Service for Kalamazoo County.
Okay.
So Kalamazoo County is now under severe thunderstorm warning until 10:30.
Okay.
60-mile-per-hour wind gust for this is radar indicated. Some of the communities that are going to be affected here, of course, are going to be Kalamazoo, Portage, for example, and then eventually moving into Calhoun County as well. But right now, for Kalamazoo County, you can see the Will has it highlighted there. This is really sort of for the northern half of Kalamazoo County. We're talking about I-94 north, and that goes until 10:30.
Yeah. And the Kalamazoo area is right on that kind of southern edge where this is kind of peeling off to the just almost due west. But these storms still could produce some gusty winds. There's just so much ingredients in play today, even relative to yesterday, where we just really have to be on guard where any of these storms could start to potentially rotate. And I was talking about this earlier, Keith, but sometimes when you get that orientation that kind of peels back to the southwest, when the storm is oriented more southwest to northeast, sometimes those are a little bit more conducive for tornadoes and just able to tap into that low-level turning of the winds a little bit more. So we're still going to have to watch that southern edge too across portions of Van Buren into Kalamazoo County, and then still some really strong wind here that's approaching Berry County as we speak. Kent County still under that tornado warning. They have not dropped that yet, so that continues through 9:45. And
We do have a live view right now in Plainwell, so let's check out
Oh,
the
great.
scene right now. This is Plainwell. Our Ava Ray is there, and you can see what it looks like. Again, just some rain right now, some wind, obviously blowing that, but this is certainly going to be in the zone where there's going to be some gusty winds moving through.
And that's only the start because it's
Yes.
going to pick up here in just a second.
And as you mentioned earlier, this is running, when you talk about Otsego to
Mhm.
Plainwell and then eventually over to, say, Hickory Corners, that is the same route
Mhm.
that was taken back in March, I believe it was, or April. There were so many days that sort of meld together.
Yeah.
But the last big one that we had that we ran, I believe it was 3 tornadoes that were confirmed on that particular day as well. So this is that same area. So M89, really, if M89 sounds familiar to you, running from Otsego to Plainwell, then you're going to be seeing some very strong winds right now.
Okay, so this is that leading edge, like I was talking about, kind of that difference of red and green that you see there. That's where the leading edge of the strongest winds is going to be working its way in. So some of the strongest winds approaching Yankee Springs right now, of course, forest there, so a lot of trees. And then as we look into northern Kalamazoo County, especially on the northern side of Kalamazoo, that's where we're expecting some of the strongest wind. This is Kalamazoo, and we're pointed off to the west. If we could turn that a little bit, Keith, if you could hop on Weather Vision and use the point to zoom and just turn it slightly northwest, we'll probably get a good view of like a shelf cloud approaching. So again, that camera is right downtown. We're going to try and get that oriented so we can kind of see that leading edge. Looks like we now have a new tornado warning, Keith, that was just issued for now Berry County, northern Berry, southern Ionia.
Well, the National Weather Service had just said that they are monitoring some cells south of Grand Rapids where the advancing line is intercepting, merging with isolated cells, and that again is that tornado warning that you mentioned. It does go, or it is in effect until 10:15. 10:15, this is for southeastern Kent, southwestern Ionia, and northern Berry County. So southeastern Kent, southwestern Ionia, northern Berry County, this goes until 10:15. This is for a line of thunderstorms that goes from Caledonia to near Middleville, just mentioned both of those communities.
Yep.
Moving to the east at 45 miles per hour. For now, this is radar indicated. But if you're around Middleville, if you're around Freeport, here for the next 10 to 15, 20 minutes or so, you need to be taking cover.
Yeah, so this is the area, if I'm understanding right, I believe this is the area of concern. This entire leading edge, though, honestly, you can have these little spin-ups, but I drew my circle a little bit big. But this area right here, approaching the Thornapple area, for example, Irving, Middleville, as Keith mentioned, that is definitely an area of concern. Some other locations, just to mention, within this new tornado warning that, again, goes until 10:15 p.m. for a portion of northern Berry, southern Ionia, and the southeastern corner of Kent County now. Some other locations now under a tornado warning. This does include Hastings. Hastings, now is the time to start getting to your tornado shelter. You are on the southern edge of that polygon. However, I would just, in an abundance of caution, I would get there. Carlton, Freeport, Clarksville, and eventually Lake Odessa in Ionia County. Want you in your tornado safe place and getting there here very shortly. This just crossed into Berry County, so Hastings, there's still a few more minutes, but again, this is moving just so rapidly that you're not going to have as much time as you might be used to when it comes to some of these advancing lines of storms, because these are moving east at about 50 to 60 miles per hour.
I
So
believe now if we take that camera there, you'll see, there you go. That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about.
So classic like striations, almost looks like a shelf, that's where it gets its name, almost those striations or lines in the cloud, and indicative of usually a strong wind threat potentially, and certainly going to be the case here with this line of storms. So very ominous looking storm clouds working their way through West Michigan right now. And there's, again, Ava Ray is in Plainwell, and we were mentioning it's only going to pick up. So she's now in the thick of it as far as the rain and likely some of the stronger winds just kind of pushing through right now.
Yeah, that camera view that we were just looking at, by the way, is looking to the northwest or west-northwest, and the right side of the screen you'll be able to see the arena there. And so Will noted that's where some of the strong winds are coming right in. Will's going back there on the radar right now, showing you the area,
Yeah.
radar.
Definitely some of the best signature I've seen, Keith, as far as trying to tighten up a little bit. It also looks like there could be a little area of rotation near Caledonia, just a little farther north. So along this leading edge, there's just shear that can kind of spin up some tornadoes. And so just near Yankee Springs and approaching, I would say, the Irving area right now. And then eventually that would be pushing towards Freeport or Carlton. That's in Berry County. That's just north of Hastings. So on the north side of Hastings especially. And then also up here in Caledonia, there's a little bit of some red and green being indicated kind of nearby each other. That is, again, that indication of possible rotation. And the wind's kind of surging a little bit near Holly Corners. That's in the Caledonia area. I'm not sure if that's a township or if that's a street, to be honest. I think it is a street.
Yeah, and so that's going to, if you're in Caledonia, if you're in Alaska, then you should be taking cover, because this is going to be a literal, it's almost at M37.
Yep.
Right now.
Yeah, so not to be overlooked. So we have 2 tornado warnings indicated here by these red polygons. Just want to kind of set the scene. So Grand Rapids extending out towards the edge of Kent County. Lowell, you're under a tornado warning. They did just trim that. So Grand Rapids is now out of the tornado warning, Grand Rapids Metro. But this extends along M21 out towards Lowell. And then you also have this additional tornado warning that is a little bit farther south for that northern portion of Berry County, essentially kind of like the northern half of Berry County that does include Hastings. And you can see they're updating that one farther north polygon, but this one has remained consistent. That includes a southern portion of Ionia County too, towards Lake Odessa, for example.
Yeah, so far, let's see, gusts in Grand Rapids so far only to 32 right now. That's from the National Weather Service. So that's not too strong right now, at least with that leading edge that's coming through. That's the latest on that.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen any damage reports coming in other than what we've already talked about here several minutes ago. But continuing to monitor there. But again, with that tornado warning heading toward M37, so if you are west or along or even just east of M37 there, in southern Kent County or northern Berry County, you should be taking cover.
Yeah, and the wind might be picking up a little bit. Did they mention a cell merger? Is that what they were talking about?
That's what they said. Yes, that was at 9:26, but 7 minutes ago, that they were monitoring the cells there where the advancing line, the big line of thunderstorms is intercepting or merging with some of those isolated cells.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see the wind speed, the velocity flare up a little bit. Sometimes, basically, you have the momentum of 2 storms kind of coming together as one, and that can also create different slight opposing motion. So that's why we're starting to see this possible area of rotation right along. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. So yeah, right along almost the Berry Ionia County line in the southeastern corner of Kent County, now extending out towards the Lake Odessa area eventually. That's an area of concern for sure right now.
Well, and by the way, campgrounds are up there. So
Yep.
around Yankee Springs, around Gun Lake, of course, those are very popular spots at this time of year. And so those folks there certainly need to be on guard, because there's going to be some very strong wind. At the very least, there's going to be some very strong wind in there. Of course, worse, it could be damaging winds or some rotating winds as those storms continue to race off to the east. Seeing now some photographs here of shell cloud moving through the Middleville area.
Yes.
So we had mentioned that as well. And as Will mentioned, that is a sign of some very strong wind.
Yeah, I also want to mention Prairieville. I want to mention that Irving area we were talking about in Berry County too. There's still an area of concern down there where the storm is kind of surging out ahead. Prairieville, and then Hastings still, you're in that tornado warning, but immediately north of Hastings, a possible area of rotation that could be tightening up. Definitely looking a little bit tighter as far as the spin is concerned, immediately east of Caledonia as well, when we look at these.
That's what the National Weather Service just noted, that there is likely a TDS signature there east of Caledonia.
Okay, so that means tornado debris signature. I'm going to check our debris detection. Yeah, I can see, I think, what they're talking about right there, possibly.
Yes, yeah.
So right in the center of the screen, that could be a tornado confirmed by radar. Let me just cross-reference this with our velocity. I would say that's pretty convincing. So it's just immediately east of where the velocity signature is. However, that could be kind of catching up with where the debris is being indicated.
Yeah, so that would be north of 108th Street, north of 108 headed toward Freeport,
Mm-hmm.
and south of 84.
Talking right about here, and then eventually, what is that, Keith? Is that
In 50.
M50? That's what I thought I saw.
In 50.
But yeah, so tracking right along M50. This is just still, that's still just barely in Kent County.
Yeah, and you know, remember that new warning that they issued was for southeast Kent County, southwest Ionia County, and northern Berry County, so pretty much right there.
Yeah.
Where that is being detected.
Yeah, and that is the first convincing signature of a possible tornado. It's definitely also, as far as the velocity is concerned, you can see that brightening up, right? The brighter reds and orangish color that you're seeing right there. That, again, is kind of that radar kind of curling up a little bit, just south of 84th Street, southeast, I believe.
Yeah, and Whitneyville Road, so that would be east of Whitneyville Road,
Mm-hmm.
and between 84th and 108th.
Yep.
So if those sound familiar to you, and if you move east there to Freeport, then you need to be in your shelter there. If you're close to M50, really if you're in Lake Odessa, the Lake Odessa area, we're talking about southern Ionia County there, right around the Ionia-Berry County line, Woodland, you probably should be taking shelter.
Yeah. Freeport for sure, especially I think this area of rotation in a tornado is going to pass on the north side of Freeport, and then immediately off to the northwest of there is Campbell, for example, need to be in your tornado safe place. This is a confirmed tornado by radar that is lofting debris into the air. It's located right about there, just to the east of Caledonia, approaching the Freeport area. And I'll give you just some streets just to mention here really quickly. Montcalm Avenue, if you're along Hastings Road, if you are along M50 as well, you need to be taking this extremely seriously. This is M50 here that kind of does that little zigzag there. That's right where this storm is tracking. So if you are near or along M50 in anywhere around Freeport or Campbell area, for example, please be getting to your tornado safe place. You will not have a lot of time. This is minutes away. And eventually, as Keith mentioned, Lake Odessa, for example, some other locations, Clarksville, just in an abundance of caution. That's a little farther north as well. I think it's likely to pass just south of Clarksville, between Clarksville and Lake Odessa, and then eventually M66. This will cross.
66 and I-96. If you're anywhere in that polygon that will sort of denoted there, from Freeport over to M66 up to I-96, and then back over to right around Whitneyville Road, then you're right in the zone there as this continues to east along M50 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you certainly need to be taking cover if you're in those areas as well.
Yes.
I haven't seen any additional reports coming out. There is a new severe thunderstorm warning. This is from the National Weather Service here. This is for Ionia County and Eaton County. This is Ionia and Eaton County. So this would be a little east following this until 10:45. This is near Freeport. That's what you're talking about. Near Freeport, 11 miles north of Hastings. This is running right along the Berry Ionia County line.
Yeah,
so that's what
it really
do.
is.
If you're south of I-96, between and then in southern Ionia County or northern Berry County, you're right in the zone here. So some of the communities here, it's located near Freeport, 11 miles north of Hastings. This is moving to the east at 50 with radar indicating 70 mile per hour wind gusts.
Yeah. And are they still talking about that tornado debris signature at all,
I haven't
Keith?
said anything else about that just yet.
Yeah,
They
it's-
are saying that it was likely, and so I would not be surprised if they come out with something on that.
Yeah.
They haven't said anything since. That was at 9:30.
Yeah, it was a couple scans, and there's still possibly some tornado debris signature going on. However, it's a little less in the latest scan, a little less clear to me, to my eye, that we might have a tornado. However, still, take this extremely seriously. If you're in the southern portion of Ionia County, northern part of Berry County, still some radar indicated rotation and possible debris getting lofted. Just want to set the scene here again, I know we have a lot of folks tuning in from, say, Kalamazoo County that are wondering what's going on. Still have a severe thunderstorm warning there. That warning goes through 10:30 for radar indicated wind speeds of 60 miles per hour. You're right on the southern edge, and that line is still going to really push through, I think, especially the northern part of Kalamazoo. Then we have Berry County. If you're in Berry, for example, you're not under that tornado warning. That tornado warning is right here in north. However, that severe thunderstorm warning for Berry County is still for radar indicated wind speeds of 70 miles per hour. We've been saying it all night. Still treat that very similar to how you would a tornado. A 70 mile per hour wind gust is still very strong and can do considerable damage. And then up into the Hastings area, for example, now you're talking the tornado warning, this red polygon that you see there extending into Ionia County as well.
Yeah, by the way, that severe thunderstorm warning that we told you about for Ionia and Eaton County, there is tornado possible noted with that as well. I understand that our reporter Ava Ray is now heading north out of Plainwell. Last we checked with Ava, she was in Plainwell and now moving north toward Caledonia. I don't know if Ava can hear me right now. There she is. Ava, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see right now?
All right. Thank you so much, Ava. We're going to wrap this up. We'll go back to you in a little bit. Keep us updated, Ava, and stay safe out there with Tesha. Want to go back to radar here just a second. There's definitely an area of rotation now tightening up a little farther south along this edge, now over Hastings. And this isn't uncommon. You can get different areas of rotation. I know we were just talking about the one farther north. That one kind of fell apart a little bit. This is definitely the more concerning pocket to me right now is the surge right over Hastings. And Hastings, this is serious. Are they mentioning this at all?
No, they're not mentioning the one in Hastings. My bad on that one. They are mentioning,
Okay.
They're saying they're watching southern Berry County down to Gull Lake for tornado potential based on line orientation and shear.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I was talking about a little earlier, Keith. Whenever we have that kind of shape that pushes things a little bit farther to the east, these sort of storm structures are just more conducive for spin-up tornadoes. And what we look for as well just is sort of any sort of notches or little kind of like kinks in this little line. And so I started to see one develop right over Hastings, and it looks like there could be just a little bit of some rotation trying to take shape right there. Let me just switch this over to, I clicked the wrong thing. Let me switch this over to our debris detection just to see if there's anything there or anything being noted. Nothing. It's very broad. That could be even just like twigs from the wind, to be honest.
You know what Will is talking about here too, just sort of noting how this is so common for us with tornadoes here.
Mhm.
Spin-ups, they happen rapidly and they happen right along the leading edge of a line of severe thunderstorms. That one that you have there that we've been talking about that is now along in 50 also looks to be impressive as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different areas, and this is not uncommon, as Keith was just talking about. This first one is just south of Clarksville and tracking right along M50 into Ionia County, out towards Lake Odessa. You need to be getting to your tornado safe place. I know along lakes, you know, there's sometimes cottages. Cottages oftentimes are sometimes built 70 years ago and maybe not the most well-structured building. If you can get to a neighbor's that has a basement, now is the time to do that. You only have a few more minutes. There's, of course, a lot of campgrounds in this area as well, as Keith was mentioning, in portions of Berry County and then even into southern Ionia County. So just keep that in mind. A new warning just issued, it looks like, or they just, I think, trimmed the warning, Keith. But
Yeah.
Still very honed in. I am still very honed in on that area of possible rotation forming over
I
Hastings.
agree.
And that would be extending out towards, say, Woodland, and that would, I think, track south of M43. But it would, well, M43 is this, so it takes that right turn. However, it's crossing M43 as we speak, and then I think it'll stay south of M43 up towards Woodland.
Yeah,
Uh,
40 to 66.
Yes, exactly. So 2 areas of concern there. Whoa, that was an interesting update from the radar scan. I don't know what's going on there. Oh, okay. It was just catching up. But yeah, that's also, I mean, yeah, that is a strong pocket of wind.
Very strong.
In fact, if I were to put a little, I'll click a couple pixels there, Keith, just south of Clarksville. So yeah, we're talking 60-mile-per-hour winds. I mean, if nothing else, some very strong winds around kind of that almost downdraft or something going on.
This is going to be well south of 96, close to M50. But this is in southernmost Kent County, about to move into Iowa County there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that area, no matter whether there's a tornado or not, there's very strong winds.
And I can kind of see maybe what they were talking about. Didn't they mention near Gull Lake, where they said in the Richland area?
Berry County down to near Gold Lake, they said.
Yes.
Line orientation issue.
Yeah, so they're looking at that little kink right there, that little almost this shape right here. And sometimes those are kind of the precursors to some rotation trying to develop. But the orientation, what they're getting at here is what I was mentioning a little bit earlier. When a storm is shaped like this and not as much north-south, it's more, it's able to tap into that shear a little bit more efficiently. So this area, if we start to see anything tightening up, we're talking like Ross Township, that's right near the Gull Lake area. That's where this leading edge is. That's going to be advancing out towards, say, like Galesburg, and eventually, were you going to mention something in Augusta area as well?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, from the emergency management in Eaton County there, Ionia is reporting rotation around Lake Odessa.
Okay, that's exactly where we were talking
Around
about.
Lake Odessa, and then also a new severe thunderstorm warning from the National Weather Service for Calhoun County. So now Calhoun County joins Kalamazoo County with severe thunderstorm warning. This too goes until 10:45.
Okay.
For 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts located near Gull Lake, 7 miles northwest of Battle Creek. This is moving east at 55 miles per hour.
Okay, so I think of like Galesburg and Augusta out into Springfield. Those are some of the next locations that are going to see the leading edge of this. And by the way, we still have that tornado warning down in Berrien County. So we'll have to keep an eye on that once we continue to track this cluster of storms that's working its way through Berry and Ionia counties. It does look like we just now have one polygon, so that includes that southern portion of Ionia County and then the northern and northeastern corner of Berry County too. So that's our main area of concern right now for tornadoes. Lake Odessa, especially if we're getting now some reports of some rotation in the sky. Lake Odessa, you need to be in your tornado safe place. We'll see if this gets extended out into the Portland area, for example, as well, and towards Sunfield. These are locations you're not technically in that warning just yet. However, I would not be surprised given the kind of history of this storm if that gets extended a little farther to the west. Or to the east.
Remember, these are mainly moving off to the east, I believe, at about 50, 55 miles per hour. Certainly the storms that are heading in Calhoun County are moving at that speed. You know, as Will noted there, as you can see right there, he's pointing out one of those peaks.
Yep, and that's almost got kind of a hook shape. You have just these different areas that are kind of surging out ahead of the main line, and anytime you have just wind working its way through at different speeds, that can generate some areas of rotation. So this little surge ahead of the main line creates just enough sometimes spin to spin up a tornado. So that would be near Lake Odessa. Another area though of concern is down there towards Coates Grove.
Coates Grove. This is south of M43, and this is headed toward M66. So again, this is going to be running toward the Eaton and Berry County line. You talk about Woodland, you're talking about northeastern of Berry County, whereas you look at Odessa there, Lake Odessa, you're talking about south, moving up into Ionia County.
Yeah, and so the moral of the story here, if you're under this severe thunderstorm warning, if you're under a tornado warning especially, I would still just treat it like a tornado warning, even if you're under those severe thunderstorm warnings tonight, because they really do have that strong of wind potential. And the sort of style tornadoes that we're going to see, if we see any tonight, are usually your very short-lived spin-up. They can happen in a radar scan or two, so they happen very quickly. And sometimes the warnings take a second to catch up. So, you know, just treat these very seriously, and I would exercise your tornado precautions if you can. And this is off to the southwest again, that line, that bowing, the slight little bow shape there that worked its way through the Gull Lake area. That's tracking right along M89 again towards, say, Augusta, or eventually into, I'm also did you get a new warning, Keith?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Different. That was our push alert. I thought it was a alert from the National Weather Service. But you can see some, again, this leading edge where you see that contrast of red and green. That's where our best potential is for 60 mile per hour wind gusts.
Yeah, I was also looking at, again, just noting those ones, not to necessarily move the radar down, but also noting, just trying to let everybody know that we're keeping up as well with those ones that are the tornado warning that's in northeast or southeastern Berrien County.
Yeah, that also is definitely impressive. Those storms are a little bit different. Their behavior, they're a little bit more isolated. They have more of a supercell history to them. So this main line that we've been tracking tonight has mainly been just that, a line of storms, multi-cell. Those were originally just straight supercell tornadoes that produced some tornadoes to our southwest. This line though continues, and
Yeah.
that area right there, those brighter oranges, right near Campbell, that's in southern Ionia County, and eventually, like we were saying, right near Lake Odessa right now. That's definitely an area of concern for me.
Yeah, so if you're in that vicinity, if you're on M50, if you're south of I-96, in southern Ionia County, if you're around the Ionia-Berry County line, if you're in northern Berry County there close to M50, then you should be taking cover all the way over to M66 as these continue to move off to the east. This is eventually going to make its way into Eaton County.
Yeah.
But for now, it is in northern Berry and southern Ionia counties moving on to the east.
Yeah, and if you're in Woodland right now, if you are in Woodbury, those are just some other locations to mention right now for the potential. On the south side of Woodland, there's an area of rotation here, kind of in the center of your screen. Right there, there could be some tightening trying to form.
Yeah, it's right over M66.
Mhm.
East of M66.
Yep, approaching Vermontville into Eaton County. So Eaton County, I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't seen the tornado warning extended. I don't know if they're going to be working on that, but would not be surprised if we saw some sort of a tornado warning due to that little signature there, just due west of Vermontville, extended into Eaton County.
But they're not saying anything about that yet. We'll have to wait and see what they do with that warning, though, as that cell seems to make its way closer to Eaton County. As you said, we're going to have to either A, have a determination it is weakening or it's not closing the threat that it did, or go extinct.
Yeah, just northwest of Battle Creek as well, in the north, right there, Keith, if you can see in the center. There's another little area.
East of Gull Lake. I think that's probably part of that line that they were mentioning that they were keeping an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be moving there.
That's M17 or
M37.
Oh, M37.
M37, and we're talking about near Level Park. And so this would be between, let's say, around M89, right around the Kalamazoo County line. That's where you see some of those brighter oranges there. And so that would be moving east, that would be moving toward Level Park, and then northwest, let's say suburbs of Battle Creek, around eventually Morgan Road, and then closer to M37 there. This would be running to the north of Fort Custer and to the north of the airport.
Yeah.
So that'd be in northwesternmost county.
Yeah, about to cross M37, as Keith mentioned. Penfield, if you're in Penfield, start paying attention to this for sure. I wouldn't be shocked, like we've seen, if we get maybe a tornado warning that gets extended from this just little area of rotation that's trying to form.
Yeah, that would be right along the Berry Calhoun County line, so south of the Syria Township.
Even Bellevue as well. Just be on guard and be monitoring this very closely. You're already under a severe thunderstorm warning and an abundance of caution. I would be inside, away from windows, most interior room, preferably the lowest level of your home. I always say this too, as was the case last night. If you live on a property with a lot of mature, older trees, especially if they haven't been maintained, or maybe there's one that's a little bit dead or something like that, those are most susceptible to come down in these sort of wind events. And you just need to take that extremely serious.
They just extended the tornado warning downstream from Ionia. So
Okay.
you see that flashing right there. So that's going to be moving into Eaton County near Potterville, just to the north of Charlotte. But this is for that part of the line that Will had noted there. So this is headed toward M50. Sunfield, there you see what Will is highlighting here. So
Yeah.
if you are in Eaton County here, then you should be, if you're north of Charlotte, certainly if you're around the Eaton and Berry County line or Eaton and Ionia County line, as Will is noting there. There are two possible areas, one that's moving out of Lake Odessa. Remember, we had a report that Lake Odessa there was a report of a funnel cloud around Lake Odessa, and the other one is moving around Castleton. That's going to be moving into western Eaton County as well.
Yeah, and that's what's a little bit almost like confusing when we look at this, right? There's two different areas that we have to monitor very closely. So there's a lot going on. It's this surging line, still 70 plus mile per hour wind potential with the severe thunderstorm warning that's producing these storms. Then you also have these two little areas of possible rotation that is what's prompting that warning extended a little bit farther to the east.
Yeah, here's the official from the National Weather Service. It's just out 1 minute ago from the National Weather Service in Grand Rapids. Tornado warning now southeastern Iowa County. It's the exact area that Will was just highlighting. Northern Eaton County and southwestern Clinton County here. Again, severe thunderstorms capable of producing both tornadoes and extensive straight line wind damage going from near Lake Odessa to near Nashville. And so that would be southeastern Iowa County to, let's say, eastern Berry County when you get to Nashville. This line is moving east at 55. It's radar indicated.
Yeah, Vermontville, just on the north side of Vermontville right now, there's an area of rotation approaching you. You're now under that tornado warning. Chester, you're under a tornado warning. And a few other locations here. You can see Gresham, Needmore, Roxand. You're also under some tornado warnings, or a tornado warning now as well. So that's, what is that? M50, correct?
Yes, that's
Steve?
M50. Yep,
Yeah,
M50 running from Charlotte and then heading up toward Lake Odessa there. That's M50. So if you're in that vicinity, if you're along M50, if you're between M50 and the county line there, Berry County, Eaton County, then you should be taking cover as well.
And still some really strong wind. I mean, we already had the rotation report or areas of spin in the lower atmosphere reported near Lake Odessa. There's still some really strong wind speeds being indicated on radar there. So that's kind of that surging that's out approaching Sunfield and eventually will be in the Portland area. In Portland, you're now in that tornado warning. We were talking about that we were expecting this to get extended farther to the east. So the southern portion of Ionia County, Portland, and along I-96, you all need to be taking this storm, exercising your storm precautions, getting to the lowest floor of your home, most interior room, and treating this storm like it could produce some 70 plus mile per hour winds at the very least, and if nothing else, possibly a tornado as well.
This is going to be running just to the south of I-96, so just to the south of I-96 in Ionia County, so keep that in mind in that area. Still monitoring for any additional information out of the National Weather Service with regard to what's going on, where Will is focused right now there in northeast Kalamazoo, northwest Calhoun County. That's around Level Park. So that's on 89 as you make your way, let's say, from Battle Creek toward Richland, right around the county line is where there's strong wind there too. Yeah,
this is kind of that leading edge of wind, and we look for those little notches, as we call them, or those little kinks, and we're still seeing that one there just north of Level Park. New scan, it looks like coming in, that's going to update, but we'll see what that looks like. Okay, it's just advanced a little farther east.
Yeah, moving pretty fast. I believe that part of the line is moving 50 plus.
Yeah, and that was the exact case last night. We saw the damage that was produced there. The other concern tonight is there's still a lot of folks, of course, without power. So, making sure people are getting these warnings can sometimes get a little complicated when you don't have power. And so making sure maybe you're giving some friends and family a call if they're in these tornado warning areas, just making sure they're paying attention. But yeah, crossing M50, an area of rotation, that little signature that you see right there. Yeah, this is looking a little less classic of a tornado signature maybe, and more just that surging, but that's still those areas that you have to monitor. To me, this one a little farther south, if I use my pointer, is starting to tighten up a little bit more.
Yeah, that does look concerning for sure. So if you're along M50 between Charlotte and, say, working your way northwest toward the Ionia County line, then you should be taking cover there for sure.
Yeah, let me clear off those little arrows for us. But yeah, just north of Charlotte. And eventually, Grand Ledge, you're in that tornado warning, and Windsor, you're in that tornado warning as well. But then we're starting to get into the kind of Lansing metro. So yeah, off to the south, still some strong winds that's going to be moving towards Battle Creek here shortly. I'm not positive, Keith, which direction our Battle Creek camera faces, but
I believe that faces southeast.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
By the way, I want to let people know, if you are joining us on ARC West Michigan, if you're joining us on ARC West Michigan, we are in severe weather coverage.
Yes.
So we wanted to let you know there is an active tornado warning are several active severe thunderstorm warnings. So for those who are tuning in on Northwest Michigan, we are in severe weather.
Yes, and we will stay with this tornado warning until it expires. Numerous severe thunderstorm warnings as well. Keith, have they relayed other than I know we had a few reports trickling in earlier from like Allegan, for example. Have there been too many storm reports? Okay.
Sort of interesting there, not seeing really any storm reports.
There's a couple of them that were on the map. A few in Holland, just trees and
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe I noted some damage being reported, trees down, some power lines down in the city of Allegan and south. That was several minutes ago.
Yeah, and one thing, that kind of complicates things for us is sometimes we actually use those outages as verification of where the strongest winds are. And since we already had so many outages, you can't really do that because we're not starting with a blank slate. So it's a little bit more tricky to do that. However, I would not be shocked if this line was producing maybe some scattered outages right now north of Battle Creek, and then all the way up into northern Eaton County where there is that tornado warning that continues. Keith?
Severe thunderstorm warning there just to your southwest. As you
Yeah,
see
I
now,
just saw that.
Cass County. That just issued from the National Weather Service there. This is for considerable damage, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts at 10 o'clock. National Weather Service reporting there thunderstorms, line extending from your Berrien Springs to your Roseland, moving to the northeast at 45 miles per hour. So now this is in Cass County. This is moving into Cass County. But no, this is a severe thunderstorm warning. So right now, severe thunderstorm warning. However, the National Weather Service, with this saying, there could be considerable tree damage, and there could, of course, be damage to some roofs and outbuildings as well. So that is for Cass County. That goes until 10:45.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to monitor that because if those storms hold together, they're on a due east trajectory, as Keith mentioned. So that would include St. Joseph County, Three Rivers, up into, I would even include that in Schoolcraft, even though you're starting to get into now Kalamazoo County. However, we're going to be watching this area really closely along 131 from, say, Schoolcraft all the way down into Three Rivers and eventually into White Pigeon too, for example. So we're going to continue to monitor that southwestern edge. A different kind of storm dynamic going on too there a little bit. It's starting to kind of cluster together, similar to what we have going on farther north. But anyways, this main bow on the northern edge is definitely what we need to continue to monitor right now for the potential for 60 to 70 plus mile per hour wind.
Yes. By the way, National Weather Service is saying they are watching two areas of circulation west of Lansing.
Okay.
So in the Lansing area, you certainly need to be on your guard here because not only could there be some strong winds that's moving through here, some damaging thunderstorm wind, but there also could be some rotation. That's what Will is highlighting right there.
It's right there. Little Venice, Gresham,
You see
Needmore.
those two little kinks there, that one, that Will is where that bright yellow is. There's some very strong wind. This is to the just to the immediate west of M50.
Right
Just to
there.
the immediate west of M50. The second one there, that's in southwest Ionia County around Sunfield, and that too is moving on to the east. So that's what the National Weather Service is noting. They're saying that it is checking out just a couple of areas there where there could be some rotation.
Yeah, and thanks to Andy, he passed me a note. About 8,000 more outages in the Lake Odessa area than now 10,000 more since just these storms tonight. So that's in addition to, of course, all the outages we saw yesterday. So these storms are certainly knocking out some additional power for folks this evening, which is not shocking given the wind speeds that we're talking. When we're talking 60 to possibly 70 plus mile per hour wind speeds.
Just another damage report here. This from west of where we're tracking right now. Railroad crossing guards, according to spotters there, 80th and Chicago Drive is going to be west of GR there, have blown off their mountains.
Whoa.
Some more damage there as well. Some very strong wind.
Okay. Yeah, and let me just, I'll do kind of a wide scope view here briefly just to show kind of where the leading edge is. I will say Kalamazoo County no longer in that warning as we, yep, so we have had a few expire. So I just want to kind of set the scene here. So we still have a warning for Calhoun County, for Eaton County, tornado warning for that northern portion of Eaton into southern Ionia County. And this has now been extended, the severe thunderstorm warning as well for the Lansing area. And then we're also going to have to monitor. I still think once these get out of here, Keith, we're probably going to see some additional warnings issued down here south of I-94, especially if these storms hold their strength, which as of now, I think they will. And we're still mentioning the potential for some short-lived tornadoes with those as well. So even though it's just a severe thunderstorm right now for Dowagiac, for example, down into Sister Lakes, it's going to be advancing towards our viewing area here very shortly. Places like Decatur, you need to be taking that storm seriously too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And just the latest on that, by the way, that's for Cass County, and that's 70-mile-per-hour gusts.
Mhm.
So it's a very strong wind gust, and the motion here on this is to the east, or northeast, I should say, at 45. And so that would be, you can tell where it's headed. Right? It could be headed towards southern Van Buren County, or as Will noted earlier, moving into western St. Joe County, and then eventually, perhaps, in the southern Kalamazoo County.
yeah. One thing reassuring is I haven't seen any drops in correlation coefficient or any sort of debris signatures indicated in that line that's been moving through portions of Berry and now Eaton and Ionia County. So that's a good thing. We did have one briefly earlier. I believe that was in southern Kent County.
Okay, so there's no Caledonia.
Yeah, I think so. So that could have been a possible short-lived tornado a little bit earlier within this leading edge. But these storms that are in Battle Creek, they're mainly on the north side of Battle Creek, but we're going to have to keep an eye on that just for any sort of possible tightening of rotation as these little cells out ahead of the main line kind of merge with it. That's kind of what we saw a little bit earlier on with this area that's in the center of your screen right now. We saw kind of multiple cells coming together and kind of working together to produce a more damaging wind threat. Of course, that's Battle Creek on the right-hand portion of your screen, starting to see the rain picking up downtown as we speak.
Yeah, and this line that is sort of ominous right now, that Will is highlighting right there with that tornado warning, that pretty much is moving out of Ionia County and now moving through Eaton County and now moving into southwest Clinton County. So the western suburbs of Lansing. And as Will is noting right here, that's where the National Weather Service said it is watching two areas of possible rotation.
Yep, yeah, on the northern edge of that little segment and then the southern edge, just north of Charlotte, crossing M50 as we speak. So this is, again, advancing off towards Lansing. So Lansing, if you know anyone there, make sure they're just paying attention to this. Lansing not technically under that tornado warning just yet, but I would expect them to likely extend this if this holds its kind of characteristics, if you will. Now, off to the south, we still have that potential for some strong wind speeds, but we haven't had too many reports of damage so far. But oftentimes, it takes a little bit, maybe 20, 30 minutes before those damage reports start trickling in, of course, because it's just there's so much lightning and heavy rain. Not smart to venture out and snap a picture and send it to the National Weather Service or to us until that threat has completely cleared.
Here's some good news. The tornado warning had been in effect for northwestern St. Joe, Indiana, and in southeastern Berry County has been canceled.
We're talking about down here, although there's an area of rotation there near Kankakee, Indiana.
That one, yeah, I'm sure they're monitoring, but
Yeah.
But whatever they were seeing there coming through southeastern Berry County, they have canceled that warning. It does look interesting there.
Yeah, that's down in Cass County. That's just east of Niles, maybe
Right.
a little area of rotation trying to.
But just so you know, that the folks in southeastern Berry County, the tornado warning has been canceled.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that storm down in Cass County as it continues to spread off to the east. Right now, if I were to draw on where that leading edge is, it's right here. Again, kind of that contrast of the brighter reds that you're seeing. This is what's advancing east. So eventually going to be pushing into Marshall here within the next 5 to 10 minutes. You'll feel the wind pick up and then the rain will pick up as well. One thing I also wanted to mention, Keith, I noticed when we were looking at the wide scope view, and I'll pull this out for just a second, and you can see, look at the lightning counter. We're talking about 1,000 lightning strikes. Now, no, I know this is a fairly wide view, but that's just within the last 15 minutes. So even once the leading edge and you feel that wind pick up, it goes through, there's still a ton of lightning behind that and a lot of prolific rain too. It's going to come down very heavy, very quickly, and it'll last a little bit too. This is unlike last night where we saw a gust front well out ahead of the main line of storms, and then the actual rain itself was pretty lackluster for many of us at least. This is going to be a different scenario. This rain is efficient enough where we could even see some low-level areas, see some road ponding, flooding, some creeks and streams could even rise as well. And the fact that we still see some back building even behind the main leading edge is indicative of that. We could just see some trailing thunderstorms, maybe even some flooding later on. So that's going to be part 2 of this. Once this main leading edge goes through, your threat of damaging winds drops quite a bit. So places like Berry County no longer in the warning, places like Allegan County no longer in the warning, but you're still going to see a lot of heavy rain and lightning still kind of in the backstage of this storm system.
We'll mention that heavy rain as being a part of this weather event here, and a little bit earlier we checked in with Ava Ray, who's on the road.
Yep.
With a photojournalist Tasha there, they were making their way from Plainwell to Caledonia, and no doubt encountering some of that heavy rain. We're in touch with Ava right now. So Ava, are you still in the heavy rain, or are you seeing any kind of flooding, or that visibility still a problem for you? Okay. All right, thanks very much. Oh, sorry about that, Ava. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. Reporting live there with our photojournalist section. They're coming up north on US 131, and a little bit earlier had encountered some very heavy rain, and also that was in Plainwell, which, by the way, is something to remember as well. So, for example, if you are around where these bright oranges and yellows are, as Will mentioned, the lightning is vivid, and also the rain is heavy. And so it doesn't take much in this particular situation where we could have some flooding on some of the streets out there, especially on some of the side roads. And remember, it's, of course, night, it's dark, and so what you might think like is a clear 2-lane road, if you're on the state highway, might actually have a tree down, might have a big branch down, might have some ponding out there. Well, the reason why the authorities would say, you don't have to be out in this kind of stuff, please don't. It's not only driving in where the precip is right now, it's also coming in right behind it, whereas you might not know what's going on. But good information there from Ava and Texas. They're moving up US 131 so that they've hit a pocket where the rain is not as intense, quite different from what they reported a little bit earlier.
Yeah, there's somewhere right along here, Keith. I think they were tracking, along US 131, approaching Kent County. I can't remember if you said they were in Kent County, so that totally makes sense. They would have been in the thick of it, and then kind of now getting out of the leading edge of it. We're getting into that time where second shifters are getting ready to wrap up their shift, at least in a lot of cases, and third shifters are getting ready to go in. I often get a lot of messages from folks like, how's it going to look right around 11? That's when I'm going in. So, this is just the latest. We have severe thunderstorm warnings that continue for the northern half of Calhoun County. That does include Marshall all the way out till Albion, and then you can see Eaton County as well within a severe thunderstorm warning. Kalamazoo, we're starting to hear some rumbles of thunder. I just heard at the station here, and the rain's going to pick up. However, this storm that's entering into Kalamazoo currently does not have a severe thunderstorm warning. Now, we are going to have to watch for these multiple complexes of storms off to our southwest. This already has a warning down in Cass County for some damaging wind gust potential. But right now, the strongest segment of storms really worked its way through across portions of Ottawa, Allegan, Kent County, and into Barry County, and now is advancing into the Lansing area.
A couple of storm reports just coming in here with Kalamazoo. Wind gusts reported at 40 knots and at Battle Creek Airport at 38 knots. Charlotte reporting a gust of 34 knots. So those would not be as impressive as what we're seeing on the radar. So that would certainly be some good news.
And now a tornado warning down in Cass County. So Cass County is a little tricky because there's parts of that county that do pick us up. So I do want to mention Marcellus, for example. You are now under a tornado warning. This is south of Dowagiac, right along M60 in Cass County. That's a new warning that was just issued for some rotation that's starting to tighten up. You can kind of see that hook signature there. Kind of exactly what we've been kind of talking about tonight. That area right there is an area of possible rotation, trying to get its act together. That is tracking right along M60 in Cass County. If you're in Cassopolis, if you're in Penn, if you're in Vandalia, if you're up into Marcellus, and eventually Fabius, and eventually Three Rivers too. That storm we're going to have to really watch closely because it's headed your way too. You're not under a warning just yet if you're in St. Joseph County. However, this is definitely something that I think is likely to be extended farther east.
Yeah, the National Weather Service saying this right now is located in Edwardsburg and Niles, and east at only 30. So this one isn't moving as fast.
Good to know.
As Will mentioned, it is moving right on M60. So if you're on M60 there and you are east of Niles and Edwardsburg,
Yeah, so we have Cassopolis. It's pretty much very close to Cassopolis, but about 1027. Calvin at about 1031, and then some other locations here. Constantine eventually. Again, not in the warning yet, but we just want you to be on guard already and just monitoring this closer to about 11 o'clock, and then just a few minutes after 11 would be this storm pushing towards Three Rivers. So this is an area, of course, that is no stranger to severe storms this season. And so we know there's a lot of folks on high alert when we have these sort of nights. And the tornadoes we've seen this season have been no joke, and they've been traumatizing, and our area has seen a lot. So we have a lot of folks that have a lot of anxiety with these storms right now. And so we just want to give you that advance warning right now, just in case we start to see that storm hold its strength and get its act together. No confirmed tornado with that. That is still radar indicated rotation. And we still have this other tornado warning for a small, not really small, but the northern half of Eaton County too, north of Charlotte, although that isn't looking quite as impressive to me based on some of the latest scans. Still have a little bit of that shape right there that kind of has my attention. However, the velocity has the radar scans, and then we get a new one, and that looks maybe a little bit more like a notch to me. We'll see if that kind of verifies on the velocity, but still, if nothing else, 60 plus mile per hour winds still cranking through portions of Eaton County and then into the southeastern corner of Ionia County too.
Also, if you're in western St. Joe County right now, you probably should be thinking about taking coverage.
Yeah.
You need to have your meters up if you're in western St. Joe County. A little bit ago, when Will put that tracker on there, Fabius Township, that is west of Three Rivers, and so that would be in western St. Joe County. So again, this isn't moving as fast at only 30 miles per hour, but again, radar indicated tornado right now moving through Cass County and moving right along M60. And by the way, M60, will eventually lead you right into Three Rivers. And so this is going to be interesting to watch if this takes that route again as it continues to move off to the east.
Yep.
But if you're in western St. Joe County, really, I would say all the way to US 131 and Three Rivers. Not saying you need to take cover just yet, but you certainly need to pay attention here. If you are west of that area, if you are in eastern Cass County, certainly central Cass County, if you're in the vicinity of M60, you should be in your storm shelter.
Yeah, places, just to mention a few locations: Cassopolis up into Diamond Lake, Vandalia, along M60. Rainbow Farms is just something to shout out. The Crane Pond State Game area, I'm not sure if there's a campground there. Jones area, and then eventually into Fabius and Three Rivers. All those locations, if any of that sounds close to you, then we want you watching this very, very closely and taking your tornado precautions. So again, this is right along M60. The rotation just to the north of Edwardsburg, entering into the Cassopolis area, eventually pushing towards Penn and Vandalia here very shortly. And it was tracking east at about 30 miles per hour, right, Keith?
Yeah, and that warning goes until 11. Yeah, only moving at 30, but moving to the east at 30.
Okay, and this is, again, the area that we're watching, this area of red and green right there. And again, there's M60 kind of right in the center of this little circle I drew on there, extending up into Cassopolis. So Cassopolis, you only got a couple minutes. We haven't really done this tonight, but just we've been mentioning it, but just for a visual, when it comes to tornadoes, most interior room of your home, lowest floor. So that's usually a basement. If you have it, basement's always best. Green is good in this graphic, red is bad. A bathroom or a hallway closet is maybe your next best bet if you don't have a basement. If you live in an apartment or a multi-floor building, get to the lowest floor possible. If you're in and around Kalamazoo, we're certainly hearing the heavy rain right now, not technically under a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning here locally. However, the rain is definitely picking up, and we're going to see some prolific rain and lightning with these storms as well. So again, that's just your refresher on a tornado safe place. Take tornado warnings seriously. This is a day we only see a handful of days like this with these sort of ingredients here in West Michigan in a given season. So we might only see a day or two with this caliber of severe weather. So we just want you really taking these storms seriously and getting to your tornado safe place. I believe that is Kalamazoo. Yeah, it's pointed off to the west, so that's why you can't really make out too much of downtown. It's a little different angle than we're used to. But this is on approach, these heavy rain-making thunderstorms, still capable probably of some like 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts would be my guess, but not technically under a severe thunderstorm warning in Kalamazoo. Calhoun County, that warning is going to go for another 25 minutes. And so still some potential for 60 mile per hour wind gusts. even on the north side of Marshall, extending out into the Albion area, we would be on guard if you're there. And then also up into Eaton County and Eaton Rapids, now this leading edge starting to push through and exiting Eaton County as we speak, or almost.
National Weather Service now just saying that the tornadic cell in Cass County is going to be closely watched as it moves to the east northeast along the boundary, and it says that the cell can sustain itself as far southeastern Kalamazoo and southern counties could eventually be threatened. So, so National Weather Service is already keeping an eye on this storm. But right now, as we told you, if you're watching us in Cass County and you're in the neighborhood M60, M62, in that vicinity there, if you're around Cassopolis, then you should be taking cover. I'll put there, this is US 12. So, for example, running M62 from US 12 all the way up to M60 in Cassopolis. If you're in that area, it looks pretty rural out there, but if you're in that area, then you should be taking cover immediately. This is moving up to the east at about 30. And as we said, your guard should be up right now in western St. Joe County, westernmost St. Joe County, your guard should be up.
Yep, and Vandalia and Diamond Lake on the southeastern side of Cassopolis, that's right on the trajectory. So Diamond Lake is right about here. This is tracking right for that area, eventually up into Vandalia and tracking near M60, as Keith mentioned. The Dr. Lawless International Dark Sky Park, one of just a couple in the state of Michigan, by the way, not far from there too. So if you live near there, these are all areas you need to be in your tornado safe place, which we just went over. And eventually Jones, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the Crane Pond State Game Area will eventually, I think, get near that intersection of M60 and M40 as well, which is now, that would be kind of on the eastern half of Cass County. But we're going to continue to monitor this closely because, as Keith mentioned, on its current trajectory, especially if it starts to take a little bit of a northeasterly turn, that could even impact eventually the southern portion of Kalamazoo County as well. So
the National Weather Service in New York has said that they are watching that to see if it moves east-northeast on that boundary.
And the storms, Keith, that have entered in from the southwest, they have a little bit more of a tornado history to them, even more so than the storms that we've been tracking pretty much for the last couple hours farther north.
It's been very active in northern Indiana, northwest Indiana. It's been very active there with tornadoes that have been coming, they've been photographed.
Yeah.
And so they are definitely, they have happened. And so as Will mentioned, these storms that have been in northern Indiana that are sort of migrating and maybe even connecting or part of that line that we've been tracking through the evening there from Kent County and Berry County, that might actually end up being a more active part of these thunderstorms. So that's why I would say if you're south of I-94, for example, from Kalamazoo County or Calhoun County, and certainly that would include you there in St. Joe County, and you need to be on guard.
One thing I do want to see, did they trim the watch? Okay, yeah, I was just going to mention that. So they have trimmed the watch. So if you're in Ottawa County, your threat has ended essentially. Kent County as well. You might still see some heavy rains and lightning. However, the potential for some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and tornadoes is starting to be tapered off a little bit farther to the north and west. So just wanted to mention that in case.
Yeah, missed that one coming out. That area is now clear. Now I think the focus is now going to be closer to I-94.
Yeah.
South of I-94. Rain is really coming out.
Yeah, it is absolutely pouring on our roof. So this is, I use the analogy, it's like the atmosphere's wringing out a towel. We have so much moisture in the lower atmosphere right now that these rain storms are just going to be prolific as far as their rainfall rates. We're probably talking about rainfall rates in excess of 1.5 to maybe 2 inches per hour. So they're not necessarily going to last that long for everybody, but if this storm were to stay in one spot, it could produce over an inch of rain pretty efficiently, probably. I can even get us an idea of the rainfall rate here, like right near our station, just to see rainfall rate about 1.5 inches. So that's strong. And that's enough where if it rains for about 15, 20 minutes, that's coming down quick enough where traditional trouble spots, I always think of Howard Hill over here, and we have so many trouble spots in and around Kalamazoo, a lot of hills right near downtown. Those are the spots that could see some issues into the early overnight with these sort of storms. But yeah, low-lying spots near creeks and streams, and then urban areas with poor drainage. Just think if you have a spot on that road that you drive by all the time, it's always flooded. Those are the sort of spots we're talking about.
Yeah, and so remember that tornado warning that we have been monitoring there, that is one that is threatening our area right now in Cass County, Of course, we continue with a severe thunderstorm warning that has now moved out of Berry County and into Eaton County and now moving over toward the Lansing area as well.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you can see a clipping there, northern county there.
Yeah, that kind of caught my eye. I just wanted to see, Keith, if that has any.
Yeah, Sherwood Township there, this is east, where he's looking at now is going to be east of I-69 and north of I-94. Right now, that is a severe thunderstorm warned area, but interesting to watch, as we've seen along the leading edge of these thunderstorms here, this line of thunderstorms, where there could be some rotation.
Yeah, I saw kind of that hook shape. I think that was more fluky than anything. I'm not seeing anything jumping off the page in terms of velocity, but that just caught my eye. So I wanted to make sure kind of on the north and northeastern part of Marshall that we weren't dealing with anything trying to spin up. But right now, so we still have the one tornado warning that has not been extended technically into Lansing. So they're likely to drop that one soon. So I'm a little less concerned with that for Eaton County. But our attention is now going to shift to this warning that's eventually going to likely, I think, if this holds its strength as it is right now, we're likely to, at the very least, see a severe thunderstorm warning extended farther east. But I think we could see another tornado warning here rolled out here shortly. The other thing, too, is this is kind of taking a little bit, it's getting a little bit more organized, too, in portions of Van Buren County out towards, say, Mattawan. So still some potential for strong winds. We might even see an additional warning issued a little farther north as well.
And we do have some reports here coming in. This is a tree down that is over 21st Street, which is west of Otsego. So this is a live view that's coming to us right now. And so, again, a tree down. This is over 21st Street. This is west of Otsego, so another sign of some of the damage you noted earlier. Report from the emergency manager in Allegan, so that there were trees down, power lines in Allegan, and then also south of the city. This, again, is a tree that is blocking the road on 21st Street. This is west of Otsego. And just a reminder, by the way, again, I know that it sounds silly to say it's dark, but it's important to note that it's dark. And so you can't see anything. And this is one of the things you can't see, is a tree that might be blocking the road, especially if it's on a corner or if it's up on a hill. So keep in mind that if you don't need to be on the road in this situation, it's a good idea to stay off, because there is still some damage that's going on. Some damage that we haven't heard of yet. So
Yeah.
It's 21st Street, that is west of Otsego. It was a live view of a tree down blocking the road.
Yeah, and for those second, third shifters, this really is kind of the commute time. So give yourself some extra time if you are going to be out and about. And, you know, if you're in this tornado warning area, you know, take that seriously. Don't be trying to drive through that. This is a really strong line of storms, and it has that kind of history of some rotation with it. So we're monitoring that really closely. We're going to have to kind of continue to x-ray that storm, if you will, for the next maybe 20 to 30 minutes at the very least. And as long as that still is showing that contrast of motion, we still have to monitor for that potential for a short-lived, potentially tornado. So
And I think what Will was talking about there is mainly along and south of M60.
yeah, let's take a little bit of a closer
Along
look.
and south of M60, it's just to the south of Cassopolis.
Yep, just south of Cassopolis, and then eventually into Vandalia. I will say, it doesn't look quite as isolated. That little area of spin it's starting to get a little bit more muddied, which is a good thing. You know, we're certainly never cheering for storms. We're always hoping they fall apart. However, this little interaction right there between some opposing motion, basically right along that leading edge, we got to monitor for just some spin-up style tornadoes. But yeah, it's not looking quite as tight as it was even just 10, 15 minutes ago when this warning was issued.
And I'm not seeing anything either. We're, just so you know, we're monitoring the communications coming out of the National Weather Service office that we're looking at. And there is something being said about that. So no doubt that they are considering as well what to do as this continues to move on to the east, because they will be, by the way, in charge of any kind of what happens to this tornado warning that we have in northwest Indiana or northern Indiana as it moves toward St. Joe County, as that is their jurisdiction. And so right now, sort of quiet about that side.
Speaking of quiet, the rain just stopped. It was like a switch just got flipped off at our studio. That was funny, right when you said that. So yeah, some very heavy rain, though, noted up into Van Buren County. Right now, this storm that's over Paw Paw, for example, tracking through the eastern half of Van Buren County. I just wanted to look at that as far as radar is concerned in terms of wind speed, and it's not necessarily jumping off the page as far as severe threat. So that is good. We'll continue to watch that sometimes as these become as these storms start to kind of fall apart, we can start to see downburst style winds, so a surging of rain cooled air out ahead of the storm. So I'm monitoring for that just in case, and I was trying to get an idea of radar estimated wind speed. So give me just a second, but
Well, while you do that, England County reporting winds and gusts of 44.
yeah, still some. I mean, yeah, that the velocity of 60 miles per hour in Cass County. That's why we have the warning versus say 50. That's just south of Pawpaw. So that would be like approaching the Pawpaw area, for example, into eventually Matawan. Still some 50 mile per hour winds. So while that doesn't have a warning, they might be considering it, and at the very least, I mean, a 50 mile per hour wind is still enough to blow some things around. So we want you to definitely not be outside and taking these storms and just being inside away from windows, and preferably like in an interior room if you can.
Yeah, and a power outage update. Understand that around the Caledonia area now, that number is up to 19,000.
Wow.
And that is just in the Caledonia area, primarily in the Caledonia area. Now up to 19,000. You know, that's where Will was tracking a little bit earlier. Really might even have it look like it could have been a degree wall there. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But there certainly were some very strong winds there that were running through southern Kent County right there, southeastern Kent County. And so now manifesting in some power outages there. 19,000 without power there now, primarily in the Caledonia.
Yeah, it was just east of Caledonia, if we're getting specific. That's where they mentioned a possible tornado debris signature. What that means is the radar was detecting possible debris getting lofted into the air. It's about as close to like a confirmation based on just radar data that we can sometimes get of a tornado on the ground, when we might not have that ground truth of spotters or law enforcement, someone actually observing the tornado. So that would be the most convincing area that we possibly had a tornado tonight, and I believe that's where Ava Ray is headed now to try and get those reports, of course, as you mentioned, Keith, of damage. But now this storm off to the southwest, we're going to have to monitor here very closely, as again, it's approaching St. Joseph County. It is, like I said, not quite as tight of rotation as what we saw a little bit earlier with this, which is a good thing. However, near Calvin, you know, this could certainly start to tighten up out towards Porter, Newberry, right at that intersection of M60 and M40, which is right here, just south of Newburgh. That's kind of where this is heading. And so at the very least, 60 mile per hour winds are no joke, but we'll watch for any sort of rotation trying to form as well.
And by the way, the southern end of this, as you go down to northern Indiana, it's still quite active. In fact, the National Weather Service just put out a new tornado warning, again, for northern Indiana, for a county in northern Indiana. So just, you know, this is part of a line that is really very, very active. And so we certainly need to be on guard here with these thunderstorms coming through Cass County, because they are sort of connected to what has been a very, very active and very damaging storm pattern that is in northern Indiana right now. That is down, the warning, by the way, that was issued from the National Weather Service is in north central Indiana. So that's not for us, but I only bring that up just to say that, you know, these are still quite active, even though the focus, let's say, around I-96 and even down toward I-94, where that was the focus a little bit ago. Right now, that has shifted up to the east, but as Will has said, we are now really need to pay attention to these ones coming up from the southwest.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Keith, is behind that main line of storms that's now pushed through Dowagiac, there's still another kind of pocket of really strong rain, lightning, and maybe some gusty winds too. Although traditionally, we would expect this main front, the front edge of these storms to be the most impressive from a wind threat. But we'll have to watch that as well. It looks like it's maybe weakening somewhat out towards Benton Harbor. What I will say, I think South Haven, you're in the clear as far as severe weather is concerned. I think Allegan County, you're now in the clear. You know, as these continue to march off to the east within the next hour or two, hopefully we'll be able to give that all clear. But it's really this southeastern corner of our viewing area that's been untouched by severe storms so far that you still need to be really on guard, because this is starting to look a little bit more organized as the line comes together.
Yeah, an update on that tornado warning from the National Weather Service office. Now near Chrysopolis, 10 miles north of Silence and the lake, and it's still moving to the east at 30. It's still radar indicated. But again, that is just an update here as this continues to move to the east. In other words, the National Weather Service hasn't seen any reason yet to say downgrade this or to perhaps maybe lower your guard on this. So this is still a radar indicated tornado that is now near Chrysopolis, and this is going to continue to move to the east. So this is going to be headed toward M62, running right along M60. So M60, M62 in that area. I know, as Will had mentioned, Newburgh a little bit ago, Cassopolis, they're running to the east. It's still moving at 30, so little has changed. And I guess really that's the update from the National Weather Service on this tornado warning.
Yep.
Is that little has changed, even though now it seems from that radar view that Will is showing us right now that the focus is moving to the east of Cassopolis. It is still very much possible that there could be some rotating wind.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a little bit more of wind surging out now. You can kind of see this little almost like C shape, backward C shape right there on radar just south of Calvin. So that's the area that we're going to have to watch. And this is, very typical of these sort of setups. You see an area of rotation trying to get its act together. It'll sometimes fizzle out, and then upstream, just a few minutes later, we'll see another area trying to tighten up. And that's kind of what we're starting to see, the early signs right here near Calvin, again, south of M60, and then eventually pushing off towards, say, Newburgh and that intersection we were mentioning, M40 and M60. But what I'm talking about is right here, and then pushing off towards that direction. So again, we're just waiting to see if they'll extend these warnings into St. Joseph County and eventually out towards Fabius and the Three Rivers area.
Yeah, definitely need to be on guard if you're in western St. Joe County, as Will was just mentioning. If you're at Three Rivers west toward Fabius Township and toward the Cass St. Joe County line, then you need to be at least thinking about taking cover, because the National Weather Service will be updating this warning here shortly. It does expire at 11 o'clock, but I think before it expires, they're going to be determining what to do with it. And it does look like it's getting a little more interesting, perhaps, as it's getting closer to M40.
Yeah, and even up towards like Marcellus, there's some interaction of some interesting opposing winds that kind of caught my eye there. It's not like a classic little radar signature or anything like that, but we still have to monitor that. Still, it's looking a little bit more messy as far as that leading edge when we start seeing these little areas kind of sticking out from the leading edge. Oftentimes that might inhibit a possible tornado, because that's going to kind of send some rain cooled air out ahead of the more organized line. However, we still need to monitor this very, very closely. As mentioned, we still have this tornado warning. We'll see if they extend it. And that tornado warning goes until 11 p.m. and it will be pushing out of Cass County here fairly shortly. But, actually that area of rotation is actually a little south of what I was just mentioning, I believe. So, yeah, still very much could be south of Calvin. It's like southeast of Calvin and approaching Porter, Williamsville. We're talking about this area.
So north of US 12, and between US 12 and M60, right, and west of M40.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for the mention of some of the roads, Keith. Yeah, so we're just kind of waiting just to see if that gets extended. I also would say, still some 50+ mile per hour winds going to advance across 131 right now. Schoolcraft up into Portage, and then eventually Kalamazoo. This doesn't have a severe thunderstorm warning on it, but I was registering on the radar, still some gusts 45 to 50 miles an hour. So that's still enough where we could see some isolated outages there, but not quite as potent as the storms that were rolling their way through a little farther north.
Yeah, nothing else. The National Weather Service did update that tornado warning at 10:33, so it's 5 minutes ago. So it looks like unless there are some developments with it, we're probably going to have to go a few more minutes before we hear anything about that one. But what we do know that there's some strong, that's what Will is showing you right there, right around Williamsville, the corner. And so this is in the southern edge of that polygon.
Yeah.
That you see. So this would be south of M60 and now approaching M40. So if you're between, if you're on M40, if you're up and down M40 between US 12 and M60, you probably ought to take.
Yeah, this would be right near Birch Lake as just one example. And then eventually Bear Lake. There's Bear Lake Bible Camp as well. I want to mention that. These are just some locations kind of in the path of this possible area of rotation, which is eventually going to push up towards the Jones area too, which Jones is right at this intersection of M40 and M60 in Cass County. And eventually, again, M60 leads into Three Rivers, as we know. M60 was our reference point for the March 6th tornado, the EF2 tornado that eventually pushed into Three Rivers. It almost paralleled M60 for a lot of its life. And that's, by the way, just by coincidence. Storms don't pick and choose which highways they like, although sometimes we create those kind of myths in our head. But yeah, there is definitely something worth monitoring here. just southwest of Williamsville. It's maybe starting to tighten up a little bit yet again. We still don't have any confirmation of a tornado on the ground with this storm. We want to make that clear. This is still radar indicated rotation. And it's still some very prolific lightning as well with these storms too, which I was going to just switch over just to get an idea of the lightning counter again, because that was pretty remarkable. I think on a handful of occasions I've seen lightning in the scope of our viewing area upwards of 1,000. It's come down a little bit because some of these stronger storms are pushing off to the east, but we're still talking about near 1,000. It just updated. Oh, it's still updating. There we go. I think it takes a second. Once I zoom out, there's just so many. But anyways, there's a lot of lightning to be had. And so we want you, if nothing else, even once the wind gusts really go through, you need to wait out the lightning because there's a lot of cloud to ground lightning. It's just one example. This cluster there down near South Bend, a lot of cloud to ground lightning. And this is still some really heavy rain that's eventually advancing across 131. So anyone from Three Rivers up in Schoolcraft, Kalamazoo, and Portage, for example, some heavy rain is headed your way. Not under a severe thunderstorm warning in Kalamazoo. We just have this one tornado warning down in Cass County, and we're still just awaiting just to see if the National Weather Service does go ahead and extend that. That's a kind of interesting shape there going on, Keith, just east or just west of Porter, and that would be the area of interest.
Yeah, there's nothing, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely getting a little bit tighter. Basically, the more narrow we see those greens and reds together, you can talk about broad rotation, and then when it's starting to really tighten up, we start to get a little bit more concerned. And so that's what we're seeing right there. These are the same locations we were just hitting, but Williamsville up into Jones and eventually along M60. That's the area of interest. And I'll put a track on this. We did this a little bit earlier, but just to get a refresher in case we need an updated timing. And this might even be a slightly different area of rotation because this has been somewhat cycling. But this is tracking essentially east-northeast at about 30 miles per hour. So when you look at the timing of things, Williamsville, which I just mentioned, we're just minutes away at about 10:46, excuse me. Fabius out a little bit closer to 11:01. And Fabius, again, not technically under that tornado warning just yet. We'll see if it gets extended farther east. And you can see Three Rivers closer to about 11:12. So that's kind of the timing of when the leading edge will eventually work its way in. And you might even see on the north part of Three Rivers some storms out ahead of that as well.
Yeah, going back, first of all, in South Bend, I know there's some power outages that you see that our sister station, WSBT, here in South Bend is without power.
Yeah.
Also, just a reminder that there are thousands without power right now in southern Kent County, southeastern Kent County, most notably the Caledonia area, where it got hit pretty hard with some strong winds. And a little bit earlier, we reported to you that there were upwards of 19,000 people without power, that a lot of them were in that particular area. So even though the power outages may be not as widespread, as huge as what we've seen in some of our past storms, there are some isolated pockets there where the severe thunderstorms are. You see that tornado.
There it is.
That has just been issued.
Yep. So new tornado warning. This is what we've been talking about, kind of waiting on. So St. Joseph County, and this includes all of St. Joseph County, by the way. So that small area of rotation we're tracking here is just one. This entire leading edge, there's just so much turning of the winds in the low levels as this is pushing in that we could see additional areas of rotation. If nothing else, some 60 plus mile per hour winds area wide here in St. Joseph County with this leading edge. But what we're watching for is these little segments, kind of those little almost like just snake-like features in the radar. That's what we look for areas of rotation. That's what we were just seeing near Williamsville.
Yeah. Now, northeast at 45 on this, so it's moving a little faster, and it's moving a little bit different direction, moving to the northeast. Some of the communities that have been named by the National Weather Service here are Three Rivers and Constantine, coming up in about 5 to 10 minutes. They've actually targeted that for 10:50. White Pigeon at about 10:55. Centerville at about 11, and Colon at 11:15 as it continues to move up to the east. So we're talking about Vandalia still, Nottawa, Clear Lake, Fisher's Lake, Union, Jones, Fawn River, Leonidas, and Corey Lake, all in this new tornado warning. And again, this new tornado warning goes until 11:30.
Yep.
Until 11:30. These are now moving to the northeast at 45. So we've been talking about how eventually we're going to have to have your guard up here in St. Joe County. Well, now it's go time.
Yeah, and Keith, the other thing worth mentioning, so that's why the timing that we just went over, if you notice, that was a little earlier than the timing. So The reason for that is this new warning now has the trajectory east at 45. And so I want to put a new track on this, and I'm going to have to, or sorry, northeast. Let me ignore that 1 second. I got to zoom out a little bit. They're moving at a decent pace. But I just want to give an updated look at the timing of things, just because I don't want people, I want to get the latest information. So at about 45 and moving east, northeast. Let's see. So that would, Three Rivers, a little bit, just a few minutes from now, within the next 5 minutes. So this is the time to act, to get to your tornado safe place. That's the lowest floor of your home, most interior room, putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Constantine, for example, at 11:54, based on our trajectory, not 10:54, not 11, and then 11:03 for Nottawa. Sherman at 11:09, Sturgis closer to about 11:15. But we're going to continue to monitor that main area of rotation that I saw, which was not far from Williamsville, and advancing right along M60. We'll see if the radar signature with this is still prevalent. And I would say just north of Porter there, and advancing near M40. That's where we're kind of talking about some possible spin.
Yeah, Porter, up and down M40, eventually take you up to Marcellus. And so up and down M40, if you're in that vicinity, around M60, or if you're south of M60, if you're between M60 and M12, right? Or US 12.
Yep.
M60, US 12, and M40. If that sounds familiar to you, all the way over to Constantine, you should be in your shelter.
Yeah. And then Fabius, as mentioned, and tracking up M60 towards Three Rivers, eventually crossing over the St. Joseph River. Corey Lake is there as well. Just a few lakes to mention. So
Now the National Weather Service, this is the southern part of this line. The National Weather Service office, which is in Northwestern Indiana, which is about 50 miles, I think, south of the Indiana line, just had a wind gust of 75.
wow. So we're talking about this cell down here.
Right. So it's a very cool line.
Yeah, there's so much lightning you can almost not even see the radar. I'll turn off the lightning just so you can see a little bit better. But there's a lot going on. We have this main leading edge pushing into St. Joseph County. Still some very heavy rain ongoing yet again in Kalamazoo, but nothing severe warned right now. So no immediate life-threatening storm in Kalamazoo County, aside from still some very heavy rain tracking along I-94, possibly some 45 to 50 mile per hour gusts with that. I think this cell that's pushing into Three Rivers could still produce, even absent of a tornado, some 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, as well down into Sturgis too. That's going to be along US 12. So anyone in St. Joseph County, get indoors and treat this seriously. We do have a tornado warning for all of St. Joseph County, and we can't really give necessarily the all clear to anyone necessarily in St. Joseph County, because this entire line kind of has a history of producing these little areas of rotation, and they can spin up very quickly. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly the area of most concern. If we were going to attempt to do that right now, that would be just south of M60 between Porter and Newburgh, entering into St. Joseph County as we speak, and I think would pass north of Constantine. But if you're in Constantine, once you're in your tornado safe place, even if you're south of Constantine, just take this and go to your tornado safe place.
It's certainly US 12 north all the way to Three Rivers, and really all the way almost to the Kalamazoo County line there, is where you need to be taking cover. And also, if you are along M66 there, which is the eastern part of St. Joe County, remember, you are in this tornado warning as well, and it is now moving to the northeast at 45 miles per hour.
Yeah, and it has picked up in speed a little bit. It was originally 30, now it's 45. So that's why, again, we put that new track on it. I will also mention we don't have the severe thunderstorm warning now in Eaton County. That has been pushed farther to the east. So the worst of it should be over for Eaton County, for Ionia County. Even if for Allegan County, there's still some heavy rains and thunderstorm lightning. However, the worst of it is wrapping up. Kalamazoo right now, we're seeing some heavy rains and thunderstorm lightning. However, no severe threat currently. There's no severe thunderstorm warning. And the leading edge is starting to advance out of Kalamazoo, which typically we expect some of the strongest wind right along that leading edge. And so that is advancing out towards, say, the Galesburg area, and eventually out towards Augusta and Springfield, some locations that were already under a severe thunderstorm warning a little bit earlier. And then eventually into Battle Creek, you might see kind of a secondary push of some gusty winds. But this is the main thing of concern right now, which is that severe, the tornado warning rather, for St. Joseph County that goes through 11:30 p.m. This is still radar indicated. It's oftentimes, it would be rare for us to get a confirmation at this hour of night with this much rainfall of a confirmed tornado. We live in a very tree-heavy location when it comes to spotting tornadoes. So I would be shocked if we had any sort of viewer or eyewitness confirmation of a tornado tonight. However, you just want to take this and get to your tornado safe place. If you're in Three Rivers, if you're even out towards, say, the Colon area, for example, you have a little bit more time. However, places like Parkville, Menvin, Leonidas, Colon, Ottawa, Centerville, all those locations, you are in the tornado warning and you want to get to your tornado safe place right now.
Yeah, I'm reminded of what the National Weather Service out of Grand Rapids was saying several minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to keep an eye on this because if it does turn northeast, that it could clip southeast Kalamazoo County and then it could clip southern Calhoun County. So that's certainly something that it'll be interesting to see as it continues to push to the east if that manifests in tornado warning for a portion of Kalamazoo and Calhoun County. We know that the National Weather Service Office of Grand Rapids is aware of that and is alert to that possibility.
Yep. And maybe a little bit of a, trying to see if this is anything. I see one little pocket just north of Three Rivers that brightened up a little bit on radar as far as velocity. But brighter colors here means faster wind. And so anytime I start to see some pixels brighten up, that's what I'm getting at right there. It looks kind of messy, Keith, but right in the center of the screen, right here, these bright greens, just a few pixels. That could be something not necessarily jumping off the page at me, but just something that caught my eye, something I'll monitor for a scan or two. These are often kind of messy as far as detection of tornado and possible rotation. You can have, as we've seen tonight, numerous areas of possible rotation ongoing at the same time. We're basically just talking about a surge of rain-cooled air kind of meeting some warm, moist, humid air and just little areas of swirl that kind of develop right along that flank, if you will, of that opposing wind. So yeah, that's definitely something worth monitoring just north and east of Three Rivers. That would be right along M60 approaching Mendon here within the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, that would be running right there. That's just north of the high school. The high school is where that bend turns to the north. There with M60. And so that would be right around the high school there. And then if it were to continue moving east, then it would be heading down M60 toward Mendon. Waiting to see if there's any more confirmation or updates on this particular warning. I haven't seen anything for our area yet.
Yeah.
The National Weather Service did note tornado-producing storm over Bristol. This is in northern Indiana. This is northeastern Elkhart and northwestern Range. And they are saying there that there is a confirmed tornado there. There is a tornado on the ground. That's northern Indiana.
Okay.
But it certainly is not far from the
I think it just speaks to the potential we have tonight and the ingredients that are out there, right? We have storms just south of us that are producing some tornadoes, so we got to be really on guard here. And this is persistent. There's definitely an area of rotation near M60. This is just, giving me like flashbacks almost to March 6th because this was so close to the trajectory of that EF2 in Three Rivers. So this is, I know, kind of traumatizing. I know it sounds funny, but it really is truly kind of anxiety driving for a lot of folks that lived through that because this is just such a similar trajectory. So we want you just taking your tornado precautions, staying safe. This does not look to be another March 6th right now, that's for sure, but it definitely is another area of some possible rotation. And so you're under that tornado warning. Just take your precaution, be prepared, don't be scared, and just get to your tornado safe place. That's the best thing you can do. If you're in Mendon right now, get to your lowest floor possible and most interior room. I would also include Ottawa in that conversation for sure, and you're under that tornado warning. But this is, again, tracking kind of eerily remnant of March 6th, just in terms of trajectory, tracking east out along M60, almost just south of that. And definitely some brightening of the colors, which is, again, indicative of the wind speed possibly picking up and the rotation tightening a little bit just to the northeast of Three Rivers, right along M60.
Certainly, you need to be I would say you need to be in your safe space in Mendon.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's certainly in Leonidas too, because that's going to be tracking towards you. And Colon, just out of an abundance of caution, I want you there as well. And then even into southern Calhoun County, be on guard. Just like we were talking about this tornado warning when it was issued for Cass County. Cass County is kind of funny. It's not technically our viewing area, but we still have viewers there. Anyways, when it extended into St. Joseph County, that was where we were talking about, where we were just waiting. I'm honestly just waiting for this. Eventually, we'll see if it gets extended then into Branch County and portions of southern Calhoun County too. So that's definitely something we're gonna have to watch.
But get some more damage here to show you. This is a view from around B Avenue. This is live. This is on Ravine Road. This is around Alamo Township here. So this is near B Avenue and Ravine Road. And so there's a tree down that is blocking the road. And again, so it's just a reminder, crews are out, as you can see right there, working on this to clear this. So again, this is on Ravine Road. This is near B Avenue. This would be in northwestern Kalamazoo County, around Alamo Township there. So again, do keep that in mind if you're traveling in that area, or really anywhere around West Michigan. This is a sign. This is again Ravine Road, around B Avenue, northwest Kalamazoo County, Alamo Township, where there's a tree down that's blocking the highway, and as you see, a crew there is working on it right now.
Yeah. And we're going to see, I think, more of that into the overnight hours, just similar to last night. A lot of scattered tree limbs and trees down area-wide from where these storms have been tracking. Because as we learned last night the threshold for winds were about 50 to 60, with some gusts likely just over 60 miles per hour. I wouldn't be shocked if we had some gusts 60 to 70 miles per hour tonight. So the upper limit, while it wasn't quite as widespread, is definitely a little bit higher tonight. Now, this tornado warning is still radar indicated, still definitely an area worth monitoring though, near Parkville or approaching Mendon as we speak. And as Keith was advising, get to your tornado safe place. If you're in Mendon, if you're in Leonidas, even in Nottawa, just to be safe. And the Three Rivers area, that leading edge is kind of pushing through. It already has, but you're kind of seeing the another edge of that storm starting to move in. So expect a big pickup of rainfall and lightning intensity here within the next minute or two. And there's some really heavy rain with this, as mentioned. And it'll last a little bit longer for sure than yesterday. And the rain is actually going to put down some decent rainfall rates, unlike yesterday where it was very brief and pretty light overall. But in fact, Keith, really quickly, I can actually show just the radar estimated rain. We'll see how this works. Sometimes it's a bit laggy, but yeah, you can see some areas of that yellow, and those brighter yellows and lime greens is oftentimes over an inch of rain that has already come down. So you can see some of the heaviest rain tracked through portions of Allegan into southern Berry County, up towards like the Gull Lake, Hickory Corners area. We're starting to see some heavy rain being reported now across Van Buren County and pushing into Kalamazoo. We could see easily some areas with over an inch of rain, if not even more than that, potentially. So
I'm continuing to monitor, by the way, just to see if there's any additional word on the warning.
yeah, I see a little bit of some brighter colors yet again. So
Again, coming out of for the warning in Cass County.
yeah,
And right now, I'm not seeing anything coming out of there. So we're still waiting on additional word from the National Weather Service.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, this is north of Three Rivers. Let's see if this shows up on our radar product here, Keith, and you can see what I'm talking about. So it's kind of messy, but yeah,
Mendon, as we said, really
it's still that area.
If you're around Mendon, or if you're between M60 and Kalamazoo County lines, so between Mendon and Vicksburg,
Mm-hmm.
you should be taking cover. Certainly if you're in northern, northeastern Cass County there, you're beyond this M60. If you're near the high school or northeast of the high school, you should be taking cover.
Yeah, and one good thing is I was checking the correlation coefficient, or the debris detector, as we call it. Basically, it's just a detection of any sort of lofted debris. Don't see anything there. So that would be some sort of verification that we could have a tornado on the ground. And I have been intermittently checking that off camera, and I have not seen anything that would jump off the page at me to say, hey, we have a tornado on the ground. So that's good. It's still radar indicated rotation that's prompting this warning. That's a live look over downtown Vicksburg, where some rain, thunder, and lightning is starting to really come down and pick up. But again, no severe thunderstorm warning in Vicksburg at this time. However, you're just north of where we have this tornado warning. So definitely be on alert just in case. But right now, you're just going to be dealing with some heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. And I just realized, okay, yeah, it was switching between radars, which that's right on the border, which actually, Keith, is kind of helpful because you can definitely see there's elevated rotation. So that's That's pinging from the Grand Rapids radar. So that radar is a little farther away. So that gives us a little bit more of a vertical or a little higher up scan in the storm. And so there's definitely an area of elevated rotation at the very least, which would be the precursor to a tornado trying to kind of get its act together. So that's kind of the area, which is confirmation of what we were just talking about, where we would want to watch. As I kind of pull this a little farther south, it's now switching over to the Indiana radar. So you can still see some rotations, just not quite as tight in the lower part of that storm.
Yeah, I want to remind folks who are tuning in right now, it's the top of the hour, and tuning in for News Channel 3 Live at 11. We are in storm coverage. We have a tornado warning that is in effect until 11:30 for all of St. Joe County. We are tracking the line of thunderstorms that's moving through the county right now, as well as showing us there on that county. All of St. Joe County is included in that warning. There's a small sliver of Cass County still included in it. But right now, what we're tracking here is pretty much the thunderstorms that are rolling through St. Joe County. It is a tornado warning that goes until 11:30. So if you tuned in to see News Channel 3 Live at 11, we are in the midst of storm coverage right now, as there is a tornado warning for St. Joe County until 11:30.
We'll also mention that's the only active severe thunderstorm warning we have in our viewing area at this time. So while there's a lot of heavy rain and lightning coming down in Kalamazoo, there's a lot of heavy rain and lightning coming down in Battle Creek and Berry County right now. You don't have an active warning at this time. It's this Three Rivers area down towards Sturgis, St. Joseph County. There is some lines of storms working their way in with some embedded rotation that definitely has our attention and warrants concern. There is no confirmation of a tornado on the ground. However, these storms, as they pushed out of northwest Indiana, they kind of had a history of producing some tornadoes. So this is why that storm, for many reasons, but in part, has that tornado warning. And we were tracking the storms as they were approaching Mendon, for example. There was an area of rotation. We're going to kind of get a closer look at this storm. Tracking off to the east-northeast at about 45 miles per hour. If there was an area of rotation of concern, right now it's kind of near Mendon, possibly just south of Mendon. There could be a little bit of some cycling going on, or recycling, if you will, of some rotation. This would be pushing along M60 up into possibly Athens and eventually up towards Union City. Again, locations all too familiar this season with severe weather, but we'll have to see if this gets extended into Branch County. At the very least, I would not be shocked if we saw a severe thunderstorm warning. But yeah, if you're in Branch County, still be very much on guard. You are not out of the woods. Even if you're up into Concha, the southern portion of Calhoun County there, along M60, we still want you on guard as well.
Just received here from the emergency manager in St. Joe County. Dispatch getting reports from fire of heavy rotation and a possible truck going off the road west of White Pigeon along US 12. So
Okay.
we're close to the Michigan-Indiana line there. There you see White Pigeon and US 131. So this would be west of White Pigeon along US 12 there. White Pigeon at the intersection of US 131 and US 12. Talking about this possibility anyway, a storm report there coming in of rotation and a possible truck going off the road there again along US 12 west of White Pigeon.
Yeah, I'm looking at the velocity now. There's definitely some waviness going on here in the red and green. I don't see as tight of rotation for sure. However, there's still some really strong wind speeds. And, a 60 mile per hour wind gust, if it hits just right, it's still strong enough to knock a semi off the road and those higher profile vehicles. So, yeah, however, at the very least, that could be some gust front interaction, some swirling winds going on. It's messy. Oh, that kind of caught my eye. And there we go. But, keep in mind, our radar updates every about 3-4 minutes or so. And so, we might get one of those reports sometimes in between scans. However, that now, in that latest scan, that definitely caught my eye, as it did Keith. Yep, which is verifying essentially what we just might have heard, which was reports from dispatch, I believe Keith has mentioned, of
Fire.
Fire. Okay. Yeah, so if you're along US 12, just east of White Pigeon, out towards, say, Bluff Beach area, Klinger Lake. That's Klinger Lake, right, Keith, I believe?
And also near Sturgis.
Yep. Yeah, so that's another area we need to monitor very closally. Let me put a track on that one as well, just so we can get an idea.
And while you do that, just to note that the severe thunderstorm, the tornado watch has been trimmed from St. Joe County. I'm sorry, not St. Joe County, Berry.
Okay.
So Berry County has been trimmed from Berry County. you know, it's running along this line here, so once this line of thunderstorms goes out, obviously our threat will go away.
Yeah, most definitely. And I can get a picture of that here in just a second. These are moving at about 45 miles an hour, so I have to zoom out quite a bit in order to get this scope on here. But for the Sturgis area, about 11:17 is when that possible area of rotation would be approaching you. And then some other locations, Baroque 11:24, Noble at 11:30, Bronson at 11:33, and then eventually Coldwater, if we see this storm hold its strength, could be in your vicinity closer to about 11:48. So this is the live look. That's Vicksburg. Yep. Yeah, Oswald Park. And you can see that heavy rain, the lightning. No severe thunderstorm warning, but just south of there is where we have the tornado warning. Definitely looks like things are blowing around a little bit there in the heart of downtown Vicksburg. Gearing up for their car show this weekend. So hopefully things don't blow around too much. Yeah.
As you see, we're still active with a tornado warning here for St. Joe County.
Yes.
As we're monitoring these storms moving on to the east, Will had just noted possible very strong winds there just to the east of White Pigeon on US 12. That combined with an emergency management report of possible truck blown off of US 12 by strong winds west of west of White Pigeon.
Yeah, and I was looking at the correlation coefficient, the debris signature, just to see there might be something there. It's hard to say because this is very, very small, this little area. But yeah, there's within this leading edge, basically we're looking at these opposing greens and reds, kind of right in this area. Two spots that kind of caught our eye. There's this little spot right here, and then up here, there's been some areas of rotation as well, just near and south of M60 that tracked through kind of like to the northeast of downtown Three Rivers. So definitely several areas that have caught our attention throughout the evening. This is why we have that tornado warning. These can spin up very, very quickly in these sort of storm complexes. And so as we saw, as we were talking about, not overly impressed, and then all of a sudden a scan updates and we're like, oh, there's definitely something there and something worth monitoring. That's how quick these can materialize on radar. So just south of Florence, Bluff Beach, and that, again, that area just near and north of US 12 in southern St. Joseph County, eventually Sherman, and then Sturgis area between Sturgis and Nottawa, Baroque, for example, Colon. All of these locations still you need to be taking your tornado precautions, taking your family. I know it sometimes is a pain, but you got to wake up the kids sometimes and even get them to that tornado safe place just to protect yourself and your family. So
yeah, I think there's good reason to continue to monitor these storms that are in St. Joe County there because it does look like there is an abundance of wind shear there, perhaps, or at least some gusty winds. Let me say that, some gusty winds.
yeah.
Maybe even something getting a little bit more interesting too, is this new cloud frequency.
Yeah, and no confirmed report of a tornado. We did have that report of possibly a truck. It was a truck, right, Keith?
Yes,
Like
truck,
us.
west of US, or west of White Pigeon on US 12.
Okay. Which would be that area of concern right there, that green and red.
Right. That's that area that it was running along US 12. It looks like that might be moving to the north of US 12.
Mm-hmm.
So if it were to continue on that trajectory, it would move north of Sturgis between Sturgis and Ottawa.
Yep. Yeah, this rain is very substantial too. I will say we have rainfall rates in most cases probably on the order of about 1.5 inches to 2 inches per hour, and I can actually click a couple areas. Okay, that's a little less than what I said, closer to about 1 inch per hour. Okay, so it's come down a little bit. Earlier on, it was about 1.5 inches, those darker reds. And so still some really heavy rain. Wouldn't be shocked if some traditional trouble spots in and around Kalamazoo, the low-lying areas along, say, Crosstown Parkway, for example, a lot of, not saying it's flooded, but those are some of the spots that come to mind. Howard Hill, for example. Wouldn't be shocked if there was at the very least some road ponding issues out there where you might have to take a short detour if you're out and about. Hopefully, though, by tomorrow morning, once these storms are out of here within the next couple of hours, hopefully those drains can catch up by the morning rush hour tomorrow. But yeah, our attention is still on this tornado warned storm for St. Joseph County. Sturgis, you're next in line. You're on deck.
As you say, probably if you're in that 131 corridor, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at these primarily developing the potential for developing a U.S. rotation on that leading edge. And as you see, that leading edge is now well to your east there.
Yes.
And Three Rivers and Constantine and also White Pigeon. But as Will said, you're next for Sturgis.
Yeah, we're talking about this area. So if you're still in the eastern half of St. Joseph County and into Branch County too, we still want you kind of on alert right now. You're in the hole, if you will. We're using in baseball terms. So you're on deck if you're in Sturgis, you're in the hole if you're still in Branch County. But we're going to continue to monitor these. I would not be surprised at all if we see, like I said, at the very least, severe thunderstorm warnings extended a little bit farther to the east. You know, these storms tonight, it doesn't take much for them to try and spin up a little tornado. Looks like they just extended a warning just south of the Michigan-Indiana line there again, but we're just all very focused on this line that's going through St. Joseph County. This little shape right there, right in the center of the screen, that sort of thing is what we look for as far as the base reflectivity is concerned. Then we look for the radar detecting rotation. And right in that same vicinity, you can see there's that red and green. So that is that area of rotation, your Bluff Beach, just north of US 12, passing into Sherman here shortly, and what will eventually cross M66, just north of Sturgis. But if you're in Sturgis, especially on the north side, but even in Sturgis, you're still under that tornado warning. So we want you in your safe place, most interior room, lowest floor of your home, and putting many walls between you and the outside, as many of those as possible. But yeah, up into Sherman and then eventually Burr Oak too. This is kind of on a trajectory that will be taking it towards the Burr Oak area. So if I was going to kind of extrapolate based on the storm motion, we're talking right about there, at least for now. But as we've seen, these little areas of rotation, they can kind of collapse and then a different one forms either north or south of it. This is kind of, that's just a random pixel, I think, but my eye caught that a little bit farther north. But that was also where we saw the other area of some decent rotation a little earlier. So
that warning goes, by the way, until 11:30. So we still have about 20 minutes or 18 minutes to go on that warning. And between now and then, no doubt the National Weather Service will make a determination on whether to extend this into Branch County. But right now, it looks like the main threat is going to be certainly in eastern St. Joe County. What that means is it's good news in Constantine and in Three Rivers and in White Pigeon, because you're pretty much out of the mix now. But as Will mentioned, Sturgis, all the way up and down in 66 there, is where it could still be very problematic.
yeah, for sure. And we're
See what's going on there in Northern Indiana.
Yep. And, just for a wide scope view, again, I'll reset things just so we can kind of talk about what's going on right now and kind of put the severe weather worries at ease for some of you. So, again, a lot of thunder and lightning if you're in Van Buren County, if you're in Kalamazoo County. However, Kalamazoo is not under a warning just yet. The leading edge is also exiting Kalamazoo, so I'm pretty confident that, we should be, from a severe weather, those 60+ mile per hour winds likely kind of winding down as far as Kalamazoo is concerned. That same thing is likely true for Battle Creek. The leading edge is now through your area. You're still going to see maybe another 30, 45 minutes of pretty heavy rains and thunder and lightning. However, the severe weather threat is diminishing there. Definitely diminished in Grand Rapids, in Allegan County, Ottawa County, Van Buren counties. We're primarily focused on the southeastern corner of our viewing area, down towards Sturgis and the Coldwater area eventually, and even the southern half of Calhoun County, down towards, say, Athens, for example, and portions of Burlington, for example, just some mentions to mention a few locations there. Those are some spots that you've been kind of untouched by the storm so far. And usually just, meteorology 101, typically you see severe thunderstorms work their way through. It kind of works over the atmosphere, and then it's harder for storms to kind of build or to produce severe storms yet again. It can happen, but it's more rare. So once you're kind of worked over, typically your severe weather threat is winding down. This area has not been worked over, so you still have some untapped energy down there for those storms to work with. And so that's why we're still focused on this area. South of Albion, for example, and then down along I-69, Kinderhook, Coldwater, places to mention for sure.
Yeah, there's some very strong winds just in the south of Sturgis.
Yeah.
With these storms right now.
Just to show you, I can pull up the velocity. Yeah, so those brighter reds, that was more indicative of what we were seeing a little bit earlier with the cells as they worked their way on land from offshore from Lake Michigan. Allegan, Ottawa counties, we were seeing these really bright oranges when we first saw our first warnings of the night. So these are just extending barely into Michigan, just along the Michigan-Indiana line. So I think that's Gilead, and then Kinderhook, Algansett. I mean,
Yeah, those areas might be getting some very strong winds here shortly. I just want to update you, the National Weather Service did update the tornado warning. Eastern Cass County is now out.
okay,
So Eastern Cass County, which I think we could tell that anyway.
yeah,
But Eastern Cass County is out. And, really, I think that we could substantially say Western St. Joe County.
yeah. Yeah, I can substantially say Three Rivers, you're good. I know still technically in that polygon for now, but they're going to be likely trimming that back here shortly.
The latest on this is now the line extends from 7 miles northwest of Colon to near Sturgis, and now it's moving east at 50.
Yeah, okay, so it's picking up steam a little bit yet again, which is kind of interesting. But the velocity here definitely brightened up a little south along I-80. So we'll watch to see if we get a similar response with the storms a little farther north. It might have even done that a little farther north too. The radar beam might be hitting a little higher in the storms though.
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're at Branch County and you're close to the Indiana line, you probably should at least expect some very strong winds.
I'm not sure if they're going to extend this warning. We haven't.
Sort of surprised.
Yeah, I could see them possibly extending a warning with this storm line that's now warned off to the south.
Right, so
Yeah. I could see possibly a severe thunderstorm warning. It might be a good sign that they haven't extended that tornado warning, though.
Because the tornado warning does have 14 minutes, a little less than 14 minutes left. So it'll be interesting to see if perhaps, you see that little area there where it's almost like there's a dropout or something like that in the radar in eastern St. Joe County there, south of Colon.
Yeah.
If they were going to issue anything in Branch County, we need some data in that spot.
Yeah, most definitely. And we do have our photographer for us. He's traveling right near the 131-94 intersection just to give you a visual. Just heavy rain that's ongoing there and kind of on the back edge of the really heavy rain. But yeah, it's going to be a night where you're going to want to take it slow. This is looking south, so this would be looking off towards that severe warned storm, the tornado warned storm across portions of St. Joseph County. But just gives you a visual on the heavy rain ongoing across our area right now. And thanks for that live picture for us. And certainly take it easy out there and drive safely and get back safe. All right. So again, all focus is on the tornado warning that continues for at least another 13 minutes until 11:30. Still a lot of lightning out there. And I know lightning can be kind of scary sometimes. There's a lot of lightning flashes over Three Rivers, up 131. However, we're not as concerned with anything kind of on the back edge of this. It's all right here down into the far eastern half now of St. Joseph County. And near Burr Oak, for example, you're going to feel that wind gust pick up and you're going to hear the heavy rain on your roof here shortly. One thing we have not seen anything of tonight is any reports of hail or any concern really of hail. If anything, maybe pea-sized hail, but that was always the case. We were always kind of talking about the wind as the main concern with some embedded tornadoes, and that's been kind of verifying so far this evening. So I'll switch this over to our velocity just to see if we're starting to see any sort of areas of interest or concern. I've been also monitoring the debris signatures just to see if I see anything starting to light up there. Right now, I'm not seeing anything too tight as far as spin or areas of rotation. We'll see if they extend that warning at all. But yeah.
Just while you're checking on that, just to know, to sort of give you an idea of what the National Weather Service at GR is thinking. They're talking about the Calhoun and Jackson counties likely to move to any potential.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, so they'll probably start trimming the watch if they haven't done so already. And I can show you that now. So we still technically have that tornado watch. They could probably trim that for Allegan, Berry, Van Buren, Kalamazoo, and Cass counties, and shortly St. Joseph County. So we're likely to see more of those counties trimmed from the tornado watch here shortly.
Also from the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office, 7 reports of trees on wires.
Yikes.
3-foot tree onto a vehicle.
You said Kalamazoo?
Kalamazoo.
Okay.
Kalamazoo. Yeah, damage report.
And that wasn't even technically really very long under the northern part of Kalamazoo was briefly.
Right. So that's the only report so far coming out. What it says is the integrity of the tree was not known.
Okay.
So it might
Getting
have been,
technical.
who knows? It might have been a tree that was on its
On its last leg.
Last leg anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other thing.
Severe thunderstorm warning.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a
This one.
it's a good sign. Still not great that we have a severe thunderstorm warning. You still want to take that seriously. But the fact they haven't extended the tornado warning, we're taking everything we can get.
Here's the latest from the National Weather Service on this.
Yeah.
There's a tornado warning, as you can see, for Branch County. Severe thunderstorms moving off to the east at 60 miles per hour. They're moving to the east at 60 miles per hour. Let me make sure I got this.
Severe thunderstorm warning. You said tornado warning.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Severe
Yeah.
thunderstorm warning.
Just to be clear.
No, very clear.
Yeah.
On that severe thunderstorm warning for this storm that is moving off to the east.
Okay. What's the speed on that one?
Moving at 50 to 60 miles per hour.
You know, one thing worth mentioning, Keith, they do go with a 70 mile per hour tag on this. And part of that could be that cell we were talking about just south of the Michigan-Indiana line. So wind
Right.
speeds with that one, we're kind of picking up. And now it's, oh yeah, look at this, Keith. Look at it. Brightened up considerably there near Bethel.
Yeah.
So that's just a straight line wind threat. I don't see any rotation, but that is some really strong wind entering into Gilead, for example, right now. Approaching Kinderhook area. So some of these locations in southern Branch County. This was that cell that we were talking about just south of the Indiana line that picked up in intensity pretty quickly. It's becoming more downdraft dominant, meaning there's just rain-cooled air kind of surging and out ahead of that storm. And so right here, that bright yellow that you see there, that's easily some severe thunderstorm wind gust potential.
This is going to be running just south of US 12. This is south of Bronson. If it continues, even if it's moving to the northeast just a bit, it may just stay to the south of Coldwater. But certainly, if you're south of Coldwater and you're along or west of I-69,
Look at those
look
winds,
at that.
Keith.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
There's
so-
gonna be 70 plus mile per hour winds. That's what the National Weather Service warns.
Yep. So this is the final push of these storms tonight. I mean, we got another probably 30 minutes or so before we can get the all clear on West Michigan. But Branch County, you are now experiencing it. Southern portion of Branch County too. We're talking near and south of US 12. So this is a very small portion of our viewing area, that's for sure. But nonetheless, this is some really intense wind. Keep in mind, 70 miles per hour is still consistent with like hurricane, almost bordering on hurricane force, or sometimes even a low end tornado can still produce wind speeds in that range. So this is still very noteworthy for Gilead and eventually out towards Kinderhook. We're getting a new scan in now, still maintaining that intensity. This will probably just barely clip kind of the southern outskirts of Coldwater too, but along I-69, that's concerning. What else is concerning is the orientation of the interstate here, right? So you think of any cars or larger semis, this is going to be blowing just straight across that interstate. So that's enough where we could certainly see some semis experiencing some issues. So if just by chance you know anyone that's driving along I-69, I often think of those, like I've mentioned a few times tonight, but my second and third shifters that you might have some second shifters coming home from work right now. Maybe someone that works at Bronson that lives in Kinderhook or something like that. Give them the heads up that they need to get off this interstate and just wait this out. It will not take long. It's worth waiting out. Wait the 15, 20, 30 minutes, park your car and get to maybe a rest area or some sort of a well-structured building, whatever it is. Even if it's a fast food restaurant, anything that's open along here, just try to get there and wait this out. Or just don't be driving north-south when you have 70 mile per hour winds surging across the highway. That's a very dangerous situation.
Lots of small lakes there, lots of campgrounds there too. So if
Yes.
you know of anybody who might be in a campground out there, you might want to give them a heads up and say that there's a strong wind. This looks pretty convincing that there's 70 plus mile per hour winds here.
Yeah.
Going out to the east. I will say this real quick from the emergency manager there in St. Joe County. Trees and power lines are down at US 12 and halfway road in Sturgis. So there have been trees and power lines knocked down in Sturgis along US 12.
And that would be the history of this storm. In fact, this has actually picked up in intensity since it was working its way through Sturgis, and very fast. This is probably the most concerning wind we've seen in the last hour. We've seen a lot of 60 mile per hour winds, 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, and now even the cell a little farther north up along, okay, that's just hitting high in the radar. However, still, that's probably still on the order of like 40 to 50 up towards Burlington and to Concha and southern Calhoun County. But these are some of the brightest wind speeds we've seen as far as radar reflectivity. So definitely worth taking this very seriously if you're in southern Branch County, even up into Coldwater. This is going to blow across I-69. This is Coldwater Lake right here. Again, I often get a little worried with those lakes because you got a lot of cottages, a lot of trees right along the water, kind of susceptible areas sometimes to high winds. So anyone near Coldwater Lake, start, if you can, get underground. I would prefer that. I would just prefer to be inside, away from windows for sure. But if you can, treat this like you would a tornado, because this is some really strong wind, guys, and we just want you to stay safe out there.
Definitely, and this is part of the line, by the way, that stretches from just south of Bronx. This goes well down into Indiana, down into Angola. So this is not just one or two isolated cells here. This is part of a line that seems to intensify rapidly here, running to the east. So especially what Willa said is very important to know that north-south highway, I-69, you have tractor trailers that are going up and down that, maybe some campers that are going up and down that highway. I know it's 11:25, a little bit late for that actually.
For sure.
But with a due west-east wind at 70 miles per hour, that's going to be problematic.
Yeah.
And so as Will said, if you know somebody driving that highway, it'd be great to take an exit there and get into a building.
Yeah, and the other thing that could have happened here too, Keith, is another kind of cell merger. Like we had this one cell pushing out of northern Indiana, then we had the other storm kind of advancing that one that had the tornado warning. And so it almost like gives the one out ahead a little bit of a boost. You know, you're kind of maximizing the velocity a little bit, just from like a physics standpoint. And so I think that's kind of what happened with this southern storm here down in southern Branch County. We saw the two kind of boosting each other's wind potential and combining forces, if you will. And so, yeah, south of Coldwater right now, we're just waiting for these storms to cross I-69. I wonder if it's nighttime. I know the camera, the Willowbrook Tower camera. Yeah, see if that's showing anything, Keith. I know at nighttime it's kind of hard to see much on that camera, but we might be able to.
See that, that's the giant flag is there. You can see what kind of workout that flag is being there right there at the exit. I'm taking a look at it right now. The wind is starting to pick up just a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably still a few minutes away, just based on this. The wind is probably going to pick up. There's Coldwater. So, yeah, that's a great shot. We'll be able to watch that as these storms roll in, see how.
The flags there too.
Yep. And the street lights, they're on that wire, so you'll start seeing those dancing around. It's funny, so much of our area has been dealing with the rain, the rumbles, the heavy rain. Coldwater has been spared so far for the most part, and so there it goes. The wind just started to pick up. You see the flags dancing around there.
Thunderstorm wind gusts of 58.
Wow.
Sturgis.
Okay.
58 mile per hour gusts now being reported by the National Weather Service when the storm came through Sturgis.
Okay, which, by the way, that is the exact threshold where severe thunderstorm warnings are issued, is 58 and above, so around 60 mile per hour. That's where we start to see impact to structures, to shingles, to siding. You can sometimes get some of those stripped off when you start seeing that wind caliber, and certainly trees uprooted and things like that. Something we're no stranger to in the last 24 hours between last night and now tonight. But this is the greatest area of concern for me. There is still some stronger wind too, right along the Branch Calhoun County border to Concha, for example. Want you to just be aware there's still probably some gusty winds going through there. However, it's really the Branch County area that has our attention. And once this gets out of here, we should be able to kind of give an all clear and wrap things up. However, some really strong wind potential with this storm, some of the strongest we've seen probably within the last hour. And Keith was mentioning those wind reports. We also had, it looks like, I think you mentioned this, Keith, some wind damage reports near White Pigeon, it looks like.
Yeah, that's where
that was the truck. Okay, and then here's our 58 mile per hour wind gust. That was at 11:17, so within the last 10 minutes. And then the other report of trees and power lines down. So Keith's been doing a great job relaying some of those, but they filter in through the National Weather Service, and then we can actually show them on the map as well. So that kind of gives us a look at the history of what this storm has produced just off to the east, or to the west.
The tornado warning has now been has expired.
Yeah, I was going to say.
At 11:30.
And this storm is already now pushing out of St. Joseph County. So St. Joseph County, that tornado warning is going to go away here any second. I guess because it's so close to the expiration, they're just letting it expire. But now we just have this severe thunderstorm warning for Branch County that goes through. It goes through midnight, Keith?
It does go.
Okay.
The one for Branch
Okay.
County.
Yes, it does. I just saw that. For some reason in my head, I had it going through 11:30. I think I was just confusing it with the tornado warning. But this is, yes, our last warning, hopefully, of the night that we'll get through.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what does this power outage. This
Yes.
is a live look right now at the consumers' energy power outage now. 53,000 people now without power. And so when the storm started moving through, it was at 17,000. So you can add 36,000 due to the storm.
Man, and hats off, I will say, to consumers. Think about that. We had over 100,000 last night around this time. So they restored at least the vast majority of folks within the 24 hours. So now we're getting more outages and some loud thunders out of our station. Likely a positive lightning strike there. Okay, so I-69, we were talking about I-69 kind of under that threat of some really strong wind working its way across the highway. That is arriving pretty much as we speak. So keep an eye on that cold water camera, by the way, Emily, and if you start to see anything, let us know.
Also, Amy reported 20,000
In our border counties.
there.
Okay.
Michigan Power there reported 20,000, so you're at that too.
Down to Berry and Cass.
Yeah, and so, so you end up with quite a lot.
Yeah.
We are going to probably wrap this up at about 11:32 or so, so we're just going to let you know that.
We'll stay on our stream, though.
We will stay on the stream for sure, as this continues to move off to the east. But yes, some very strong winds right now, right along the Michigan-Indiana line. And this is now, as Will has noted, this is moving east of Kinderhook. This is moving toward California Township, out of Yancey Township, and eventually it'll be moving into Hillsdale. So you need to be on guard for that. This is already warned for severe thunderstorm warning for wind gusts 70, and as well as noted on our radar, our velocity product there, it does look like that is going to be confirmed. So we're going to be getting off in 30 seconds.
Yeah, and just to wrap this up, that's the last severe thunderstorm warning likely of the night. We're still likely going to have some prolific rain, some thunder, some lightning. However, our severe weather threat from wind and tornadoes is starting to wrap up. Of course, we're going to keep you live on Facebook and YouTube until that threat is completely over. But we are going to wrap up our newscast here. And Keith, thank you so much for all your assistance tonight.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yes.
Great job.
We're hanging out there for a second.
The second you're out there.
Yeah. All right. Hey, live stream. We can address you now. Yeah, you go chat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Well, you go on. I'm staying here until there's.
All right.
There's Grant County, right?
Okay. Yeah.
We don't have to be on the stream, but
No, you're good.
I'll continue to watch the feed.
Okay.
Okay, all right? Chat.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody. First of all, apologies for the audio issue
But thanks for the info.
earlier where I tried to take our TV stream and there was a little issue with our audio. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for this. That was helpful. Anyway, so I'm glad we got that figured out. Hopefully you've been able to hear me loud and clear. I know Keith is probably a little echoey off in the distance as well. We're still trying to figure out a good way we can kind of interchangeably switch between our TV coverage and our stream coverage. It's a work in progress, but we are working on it. So if you have anyone down in Algansey right now, the storms have not hit just yet. However, some pretty strong wind is about to push through. It's already worked its way across I-69 in Branch County. What I want to do now really quickly, let's see. I want to pull up one of our cameras down there and just see what it's looking like if I can. But bear with me for just a moment. All right, let's see. Cold water. Hopefully it works. Sometimes these cameras get a little finicky, but we're going to try it. So I'm trying to pull up a live view from I-69 in cold water, but give it a second. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, doesn't look too crazy, but this would have been a few minutes ago when this would have been really rolling through. So you're kind of on the back end of that leading edge of the strongest wind and rain. All right, so that was a busy, how long have we been on here? 3 hours. That was a busier 3 hours than last night, I will say, because we had numerous tornado warnings. So far, the most convincing tornado that we had tonight would have been up in Caledonia, which was the brief possible tornado debris signature that we had. We haven't had too many other reports of confirmed tornadoes. However, there was another area of interest. I believe it was down near White Pigeon. I believe that was where that truck was flipped, and or at least knocked over or something. And I gotta confirm that. And then I think they said something about swirling wind or something of that nature. So that's also intriguing. There were definitely numerous moments where we had some areas of rotation, and those storms were kind of cycling through that. So hopefully you were able to kind of hear us okay, and we were able to give you that information. So I appreciate everyone that's still streaming with us. Again, the threat is subsiding. The threat is now pushing off into Hillsdale County, out of Branch County, but the county that's still under a warning for us is Branch. It goes through midnight, but I would expect that to be trimmed here shortly. Once this severe wind starts to get out of here, we'll be able to give kind of an all clear. But we really started to see that wind velocity pick up. And it's still cooking down in the southeastern corner of our viewing area, just through Kinderhook and Algansey. Now, granted, this is you're getting a little far from the radar, so the radar beam might be detecting some wind speeds a little high up. But those bright yellows, those are winds probably in the order of 60 to 70 miles an hour. Oh shoot, hold on. When I click it, I have to make sure the warnings are turned off. So let's see. So yeah, I mean, that's my guess is that's hitting a little high, but that it's a possibility we could be having those winds mixing down to the ground as well. So that's certainly enough to do some pretty significant damage if we're having some wind speeds 70 plus miles per hour there. Bear with me, stream. I will gonna check a few things really quickly. I got feedback because my laptop wasn't muted. All right, let's see. Still those strong winds. What I was going to do really quickly is pull up. I was going to attempt to pull up the. Where are we on right now? I'm going to pull up the consumer's energy outage map just to see. So I did not know that. I'm amazed by that stat. So apparently, we had over 100,000 total Michiganders last night. I think a vast majority of those were consumers folks knocked out of power, and now the number is up to about 54,000. So, and right in the heart. Let me show you guys this, or at least attempt to. Hopefully I don't crash the stream. But let me just show you where some of the outages that we've been seeing have been cropping up. Let's see if I can do this. All right. Don't crash the stream. So down here, this was where we saw that wind really flare up down in portions of southern Branch County, south of Bronson, and then out into like the Kinderhook area. We're likely to see some of those winds. Those reports probably extend a little farther to the east as well. But anyways, that's the most recent area of some decent outages. All those orange pockets, by the way, are 200 to 1,000 customers. And then you can see some folks, especially north of Battle Creek, which was where we had the severe thunderstorm warning that was issued for Calhoun County a little earlier. That was the most convincing area of strong wind, was on the north side of Battle Creek. And so that kind of verifies that we had some pretty strong winds there. Now, some of these could be from last night. I will say some of them still could be from last night, but I think some of these larger outages likely cropped up within the last few hours. Like if I click that one, that's from tonight, the one like northeast of Battle Creek. So it's just kind of, this is kind of verification that we probably had at the very least some 50, 60 mile per hour winds. There's also, of course, a lot of outages now across portions of Berry County, into Ione County. Lake Odessa area was a spot we were mentioning quite a bit. So anyways, let me get this back a little bit bigger. See if I can flip these around. I guess it won't let me. Okay, I'm going to turn off my screen share and get radar a little bit bigger again. So the strongest winds are now exiting Branch County. That's what you're seeing there. Those bright oranges have blown through Algansey. Still some strong wind potential in Quincy, right along US 12, and but that will be exiting Branch County and thereby exiting our viewing area here very shortly. Here is a look at velocity area wide. Here's radar area wide. And you can see we only have that one warning still remaining down in Coldwater and Branch County. They've already trimmed it though, so a good portion still has been trimmed, but that continues for at least probably another 10-15 minutes. It goes through midnight, but we're likely to see the leading edge exiting here shortly. Some really heavy rain, a lot of thunder and lightning behind that leading edge as well. So we're about to see, you guys, the last of our warning, I think. And then we, I think, can give pretty much the all clear, aside from just some heavy rain the next few hours and some lightning. Threat of severe weather as far as severe thunderstorms and tornadoes is diminishing.
Yeah,
So
you
that's
said
good.
you trimmed it. Did you see that?
Yeah, they just trimmed the warning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just seeing.
It does,
Is there anything new in the chat?
no, they just, the update on the severe thunderstorm warning, that we just talked about there. No, hold on. For Branch,
Some
they're still going 70 mile per hour gusts. Still goes until midnight. No change.
man, we got a lot of great shots in our chime in page. I don't know if you've looked there at all, Keith, but man, some insane.
Shell clouds?
Yeah.
I saw
Angie Brandt in. I gotta try and show this really quick. Man, the shot in South Haven was insane. Look at this. Hold on, I'm gonna get it for you guys too. But look at that.
Oh,
That's a great shot of
that's
a.
great shot.
Um,
Good catch by Angie there.
yeah, that's crazy. I'm gonna post that to my
Yeah.
page and then I'll try and share it that way. But man, if you're looking for a classic shelf cloud photo, I'm gonna share one in just a second.
Yeah. Okay, I'll grab it for you. Go ahead, just set it there. I'll take it from you. Or I'll come get it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Think you're done.
I think we're looking pretty good. I think Quincy area, Algansey, California is kind of our last little batch of a few towns that still might see some gusty winds here for the next 5 minutes or so. But no immediate tornado threat, that's for sure. And the wind threshold has definitely come down slightly to me. There was one little. Oh, okay. So yeah, folks that are still on the stream, we're kind of winding down. We'll probably be able to wrap this up here shortly. If you have any damage reports or anything of that nature, feel free to send them our way as it is safe. Probably wait till tomorrow morning at this point, but unless there's anything super pressing, feel free to send them our way. I am. Angie.
Yeah, I mean, originally I was gonna come back yesterday, I mean today, but.
Okay, let's see.
Today, so that was cancer.
Right.
Yeah. Later on.
I'm still a little more, so.
Well, it's a little.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this wasn't today. This is-
All right, I'm gonna show you guys this picture really quickly.
We're done.
Yeah, weather-wise.
Yeah, that's true. I can't say about.
Director Jim and Keith are having a little powwow. No, I'm just kidding. There's other people in the room, you guys. How rude.
You always got to know.
All right, Angie. Okay. So I am going to show this really quickly, just so we can show this on the stream because it's too crazy. That's probably what Forrest was able to capture out there too. Okay, let's see. Hold on. How can I do this? Gotta think. Let me see if this works. I'm gonna try and show it on the feed for you guys so you can see. This is frustrating. You have to log into Facebook just to see a picture. That's annoying. You can't just see a picture. Grr. I don't know how to show it. That's frustrating. Shoot. Maybe if I do this. Here's the picture, just because I promised. You guys can kind of see that. Pretty crazy. So that's called a shelf cloud. And you get sometimes those really epic shelves working their way onto Lake Michigan. That was the kind of southern edge of the severe storms as they were advancing onto Lake Michigan or our lakeshore. Wind was a little bit more significant even up towards Holland, and so like I would say Allegan County, Ottawa County into Muskegon County was some really convincing high wind potential early on as this was initially starting.
Hey, by the way,
And then, yeah, what's up?
flooding about
Yeah, I was just gonna.
Upton and Dickman Road in Battle Creek, a vehicle stuck in water under the bridge and occupied.
Yikes!
Battle Creek, Beckley Road, west of Riverside, flooded.
Should we send someone to that?
I'm gonna go talk. So I'm gonna take a picture.
So where would say that one more time? What bridge was it under, Keith?
Upton and Dickman.
Upton.
Upton, yeah, intersection of Upton and Dickman Road.
So Upton and Dickman Road. Keith just got a report of a possible water rescue.
Water under the bridge. And then also.
A vehicle.
Battle Creek, Beckley Road, west of Riverside is flooded.
Yikes!
So I'm gonna go downstairs.
So not super surprising. We talked about that, right? The heavy rain potential with this. This is just within the last 12 hours, and you're seeing some areas where the radar is estimating, yeah, those areas of yellow, some of them over 3 inches of rain, Keith, in and around Battle Creek.
That's some local flooding for sure.
Yeah, so that's enough to cause some flash flooding.
That would come down in like an hour or less?
Yeah, an hour or two at the most. So that's why we're starting to see that threat of some flooding ongoing. Let me add this so you guys can see what we're talking about. Sorry about that. Make this a little bigger. I also need to I just realized I need to do something else. 1 second. Okay, the wind threat is really wrapping up for Branch County, so I'm happy about that. Happy to report that. Okay, but what we were seeing and what Keith was mentioning was a possible someone under a bridge in a vehicle that is inundated with water and they're still in the vehicle. So we're debating sending someone to that. But yeah, a lot of heavy rain. These areas of yellow is the radar indicating just within the last few hours, we've seen possibly over 3 inches of rain, which is definitely enough where you're going to have the traditional trouble spots seeing issues. So areas with poor drainage, low spots, especially in urban areas, we might see some flooding for the next few hours. Fortunately, with the storms moving out now and only probably another hour or two of really heavy rain potential for some, hopefully by the morning rush hour, we should see a lot of improvement there. So I don't expect like massive road closures or anything like that by tomorrow morning. However, if you are doing any late night driving or, like I was saying, maybe second shifters heading home late, definitely take it easy on the roadways and watch for road ponding, some flooding, and also debris, any sort of tree limbs down in the roadway. But yeah, the heaviest rain, it looks like, tracked through Allegan County, Southern Berry County, Kalamazoo, and Battle Creek, and then even into Eaton County too. I'm going to turn off my microphone, I just realized. Stand by. All right. We'll probably, though, I'll read some of your comments. Hopefully all nice comments, I'm sure. 100%. But, yeah, still a lot of heavy rain and lightning to be had in Calhoun County, down into Branch County, but our severe weather threat is winding down. So the leading edge of that severe thunderstorm warning is now into Hillsdale County and is exiting our area. We don't expect anything additional to form overnight. So you can go to bed if you are pretty much anywhere in our viewing area. So happy to report that. And I don't expect anything additional. And the other thing, as we were talking about, tomorrow is looking gorgeous. So that's the payoff, is at least we have a beautiful Friday to look forward to after what's been a busy couple of nights in the Weather Alert Center. So just to give you a little tease for tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, upper 70s, and much lower humidity. That's the name of the game for your Friday. And we'll see, like I said, some upper 70s. It'll feel amazing. But back to Live Doppler, just to kind of recap and conclude, I think, everything. If anything, the next few hours, the biggest concern is just going to be that flash flooding in a few locations. We don't have any flash flood warnings right now I'm gonna see if they are considering that anywhere. Man, we got some epic photos from the lakeshore earlier on. I know I'm gonna be tiny here, but you can see that. That looks like a mothership. Hard to see in my tiny little picture. That's out in South Haven as those storms were approaching. So yeah, just some pretty epic photos that were submitted. I don't see too many of lightning or of damage, but nothing of like tornadoes. I'm just scanning through. We get so many photos. We love it. It's so great. You guys are the best at sending us photos in real time, and we're very fortunate, that we have such great engagement with our viewers, where we're getting oftentimes, dozens, if not over 100 photos when these big weather days happen. It's really, really helpful to give us kind of a visual of what's going on the ground. That looks interesting. Funnel cloud. Let's see where that was. That definitely looks like a little bit of a lowering. Where was that? Let's see, data. That looks maybe like Long Lake and Delton. Yeah, definitely some interesting cloud features there that were captured. Looks like a little bit of a lowering. Man, yeah, so many. That shelf cloud, I'm a little jealous I didn't get to see that in person. Although I'm glad I get to see all these cool pictures. Wow. This is epic. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. Hold on. Wow, that's a great shot. I saw a couple of shelf clouds like that on my storm chase. My storm chases in college. And they're just so cool. Okay, look. I know that's terrible glare and really janky the way we're doing this, but you can kind of get the picture. So yeah, like as far as the eye could see, almost. Some pretty epic shelf action going on a little bit earlier. That video, by the way, was submitted by Julie Valentine. So I appreciate you, Julie. And that was in, let's see where that was. That was in Bangor. So that was pretty cool. It looks like some of the really cool shelf cloud imagery that we got so far tonight was like Van Buren County into Allegan County too. Man, so many good ones. This is crazy too. Abby Bernardi. Look at those striations. Looks like stacked plates almost, right? Or shelves. Shelves. Hence where it gets its name. But you can see why people maybe 300 years ago thought the aliens were arriving. Or maybe even 20 years ago. I don't know.
Maybe today.
Kind of looks like the mothership coming for a landing. Crazy. That's another great one. Man, there's so many photos. We've got easily like over 100 photos in here. So that's Kim Mitchell. Appreciate you, Kim. So yeah, those are just some. You can check out some more on our Chime In page. We'll be approving some of these and getting them posted on wwmt.com/chime-in. And always, like I said, always so appreciative of everyone that sends in these photos and videos. We always want you to do it safely though. So, don't get some cool photo at the sacrifice of being out there in lightning or severe wind or certainly a tornado warning. We always want you to heed the warning. But yeah, so the severe weather threat, if you're just somehow joining us, if you're checking in again before bed, severe weather threat is winding down. We technically still have the severe thunderstorm warning in this tiny sliver of Branch County. However, the threat has exited farther to the east. And so we're going to wrap this up. Keith, do you have any closing thoughts, comments, concerns?
I do not. Have a good night, West.
Also, thank you. Shout out to Keith, who was technically off today and came in to help my sorry booty out.
That.
No, we kind of have an unwritten rule where if,
you have done the same.
well, yeah, we kind of have an unwritten rule around here, everybody, where if one of us is off, we always like to have two of us here, obviously, for these bigger days. But if you know what is hitting the fan, we'll put it like that, then one of us just kind of knows that we're going to come in and help the other one out. And same with same with Colin and Jeff. Like if it happens to be on their shifts, like we all kind of help each other out. And so
There's no way I could be sitting at home while this.
yeah, Keith would have been losing
He
his
would have been
mind.
too.
Yeah. So I'm glad he was here to help me out. It's really helpful because we look at a lot of different things. I'm managing all of that on a laptop on a little table. So it's a lot to be managing the stream and the chat and the National Weather Service. So, but again, there's some loud thunder and lightning out there. The threat of thunderstorms is still there. However, severe storms is winding down. And so that's why we're being so jovial. If we're going to wrap up, I will put out the thing that, again, earlier we mentioned, which is that we could have had possibly a tornado. If we did, it was up in possibly Caledonia. We'll likely learn a lot more tomorrow. The National Weather Service will likely give us some sort of verification whether or not they're going to be surveying that area and whether they'll be surveying any additional areas of possible damage for possible tornadoes. There was likely a lot of straight line wind damage tonight. The most convincing area, though, again, was there in Caledonia in Kent County with the tornado warning storm that advanced there. A couple areas of interest for me was definitely in the Holland areas these storms were arriving, definitely like Saugatuck in portions of Ottawa and Allegan County. And then down in St. Joe and Branch counties too, there was that last little flare up of really strong wind. Up into Lake Odessa, we also had that area of rotation that was producing some strong wind too. So there's a lot of areas that probably got hit pretty hard tonight. It wasn't everyone that saw the damaging winds. It never really is everyone truly, but we'll continue to keep you updated. I'm sure we'll have lots to cover tomorrow once the light of day reveals more and we get more reports overnight that kind of filter in. And I'm certainly hoping everyone stays safe. And hopefully we'll get good news out of that possible water rescue ongoing right now in the Battle Creek area. So again, there's enough rain tonight where some urban areas, low spots with poor drainage, think like under bridges maybe, or just spots that traditionally flood, they could have some issues for the next several hours. We don't have any flash flood warnings that have been issued, but there could be some minor flash flooding, some spotty flash flooding ongoing. And just remember, turn around, don't drown, don't enter into flooded roadways because you can really get into a bad situation quickly. So take it safe out there, play it safe out there. And again, thank you for tuning in on this live stream. We'll wrap this up 3.5 hours later. We appreciate all of you, and we'll keep you posted. We'll be live at 4:30 with some live reports from the field and some live pictures from some of the damage out there. So we'll keep you posted there, and thank you so much. Take care.